What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's broadcast of the NACL Open Qualifier here on Aegis, where we have been following Dorado Gaming all weekend, and they now find themselves in the 2-0 portion of the bracket, facing down Gravity, their toughest opponent yet, and what is sure to be an exciting matchup. My name is Gordo. I'm joined by Jack on the cast today. We had to kick TDS off for bad-mouthing Shochi in the pregame. Welcome aboard, Jack. Good to see you, man.
I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm here in the Sochi waiting room, very ready for these games. What I think is going to be the most entertaining matchup we've had so far in this OQ. And seeing as currently in the NACL playoffs, Conviction, an OQ team from last tournament, is now into the second round there. Winner of this open qualifier has a very good looking road towards actual competition in the NACL.
Yeah, I mean, near airport too. Out of the last three to qualify, two made playoffs. That's not bad numbers. The other one going to be in this OQ tournament, so going to have to, not in the OQ tournament, but in the promotion tournament that the top four of this OQ will go to. So AMI going to be fighting to defend their title there. But AMI also arguably like the big success story that I would think is driving people towards this open qualifier, because they are a team kind of down there in the, probably in the teens as far as where you would power rank them. And now they are going to actually, now they got to actually play in the NACL, up all their stocks significantly. The format is very beneficial to upsets and deep runs from players who you might not have at the very, very tip top, and teams you might not have at the very, very tip top. As we do go through our two rosters here, Dorado Gaming, we've met them yesterday. It's Ariana Kaido, Shochi, Fatakan, and Mixture. And then we do have Olorum, Kitsuo, Robbie Bob, Sagewabe, and Alkalamity on Gravity. Flipping back and forth here, Jack. Who stands out to you?
All right, well, it's hard to not have Olorum stand out if you've been a fan of North American League for any period of time. This is his 10th year playing professionally. And, I mean, when you look at his match history, it's hard to really nail down what kind of style he has because he's played it all. He's played through every meta, and throughout all of it, he still had some of his own shining picks. The Urgot, obviously, is his most played in competitive. It's a champion he's played at all times. But there are other guys here, too, like Kitsuo, who have been playing professional league in North America in about every single tier since franchising began. So you mix that with the experience of Robbie Bob and some of the younger players down in the bot lane. I mean, I think this is a very, very strong team.
I completely agree with you there. It's really a lot of veterancy on this team. And then I think really the way that I love to see these teams constructed is, you lean on 3 or 4 players with a lot of veterancy, and then you bring in some of the younger blood, some of the up and comers to try to book and gamble on upside to really level your team up and turn you into a team that can both qualify for the NACL and be competitive once you get there if they're able to continue that path of growth. I think that's really what pushed, and we talked about Apex Mission Impossible either. I think the addition of Phi Mini is what really pushed that team over the edge when they had been, comfortably top 12, top 8 with that core for so long. Finally, they add an 18-year-old mid laner who's been killing it in ACL, finally ready to make his move, and they get right into that Tier 2 league. Gravity going for that same thing here with Sagewabe and Alkalamity. I love that bot lane for them, and I really do want to highlight the support matchup today. Alkalamity taking on a Mixture. I think bar none, these guys are both top 3 support prospects in the region. If we're going to define prospect as players who haven't made it into the NACL and gotten to play NACL yet, I think Alkalamity, Mixture, and then probably Pika Pika are the 3 that you're really going to have your eyes on here in North America. So 2 of them facing off against each other here in bracket, going to be very exciting.
Yeah, and that's one of the big aspects of this open qualifier I don't think gets enough attention, is if you have a good showing but don't necessarily get to that qualifying spot, you can still get picked up. You can still show well enough to earn yourself a spot on an NACL team. And when we're talking about building through some momentum, once you get through the open qualifier, if you win the promotion, not, wiping your roster and picking up 5 guys you think can compete, it's much more advantageous to stick with the guys you got there with, because you have all this momentum, you have this confidence of winning this massive tournament, and then, like you said, maybe make 1 or 2 swaps for known commodities to really fit that team and make it competitive. And I think you're on a good start as we see the bans come through, some very popular jungle picks taken down, and some other very meta stuff. I love the NACL ban. I think it's one of the most proactive bottom lane picks right now. It can do everything in every phase of the game, so I love seeing that taken away.
Yeah, and I think you're going to really start to see some of these top lane bans come through, and I think that's going to highlight the real dichotomy between these two top laners. Ariana, a big carry-focused top laner, drawing that Ambessa ban nice and early here, whereas Alorum, especially in the last half decade or so, I think has really made his identity as a really weak side specialist, really good on these tanks. That Sejuani ban, I'm pretty sure, is directed towards him. He's a big Sejuani top enjoyer. I believe the Poppy in very much that same category, so they're going to take that one off the board as well. Dorado banning that while the Ambessa was still alive, perhaps hoping that they would be able to get that to Ariana. Although Ambessa whiffed through picks and bans all 4 games we watched from Dorado yesterday. It was blowing my mind. I don't know why nobody cares about this champion. I don't know if it got deleted in the patch notes and I didn't notice it, but I control left and I couldn't find it. So for some reason, that champion is kind of cratered as of lately, at least on the Dorado stream. They are going to snap up that Senna Fatakan, looking very dangerous on that pick when he busted it out yesterday.
Yeah, the strength of this champion has skyrocketed with the patch notes. You can take it and farm. You essentially went from killing a creep gives you like a third of a chance to pick up a soul to like a half chance. So once you grab that, put it in the hands of your AD carry, those crit amplifiers allow you to get a lot more variety of items. I love the Victor pickup for Robbie Bob, one of his most played champions in comp, in solo queue, super well on it. And picking up the Ashe alongside of it gives you that utility, allows you to play carry jungle, carry top side, really gives you flexibility. But as you immediately, kind of emoted at, the Galio Kindred coming in is a great combo. And now back to the flip side, you don't see a lot of Lee Sin anymore, but Kitsuo, like I said, veteran. He has played more Lee Sin games than any other champ, and if I'm going to trust anyone to pull out a champ that's kind of, not as heavy in the meta because it's very self-reliant, you have to get ahead early, otherwise, you see the do and be hollowed Radiance Lee Sin just kind of doing nothing all game. But I think they can be proactive enough. They've got a lot of utility in their mid-jungle combo and their bot lane already, so I'm expecting to see mostly supports targeted in the second phase.
Yeah, I mean, Kitsuo's probably played more games of Lee Sin than some of these younger guys have played games of comp at all. There's a lot of Lee Sin in this guy's history, and a lot of Lee Sin in the history of the game, which might as well be one and the same when you're talking about some of these guys like Alorum and Kitsuo. The Lee Sin from Kitsuo did get busted out yesterday when Gravity mogged on our boys on Hardstuck Casterlow. Rest in peace to those guys now in the lower bracket. Running a stronger roster today to try to bounce on back in that lower round and earn themselves a spot next weekend. We'll stay tuned to the background to how that matchup is going. As Shochi going for this Galio again, really notable to me, really kind of taking a little more supportive role with this Dorado gaming team, which is very different for him, it feels like. He's playing the Annie yesterday, he was playing the Galio yesterday, really kind of putting the ball in the court of some of these really strong carry side laners that he's got on his roster this time in Fatakan and Ariana coming over to North America and dominating since they've gotten here, as well as that Kindred jungle here for Kaido. He's a carry jungle fan himself. Doesn't go for his Kha'Zix this time around, but as Fearless goes on, we may get to see some more of that Kaido Kha'Zix.
Yeah, the Shochi Galio, to me, it shows a level of growth and maturity that I feel like a lot of people have kind of been wanting to see since those Fear days. To be a very good mid laner doesn't just mean you've got to get the kills, you've got to get the focus. It just means you have to be able to facilitate, make your teammates stronger. That's something that Cho'Gath certainly does, with the ability to go that battle song build, really buff up your teammates with the movement speed, just commit a ton of CC. The silence is massive. And the Rakan pick, give Mixture a champion with a lot of agency. He's going to make plays. You mentioned this matchup, Mixture versus Al Calamity, two of the most touted support prospects, and this Rakan Senna bot lane I have seen become one of the more popular, but it will be matched up with the Seraphine. When I talk about facilitating, buffing up your team, Seraphine does an extremely good job of it. Going to have less econ, obviously, in the support role than in the bottom lane role, but still just going for the strictly enchanter route, getting that moonstone, the heals on that W become massive. And when you look at the rest of the team comp, Lee Sin can W to Seraphine. Now you don't need your Encore to get that double proc W. You can heal up everyone without having to shuffle through all your spells. You'll get more damage that way. So I think both teams have a very clear comp in mind of double frontline for your double marksman, and then on the other side they want to have angles. You've got Scion ult, Lee Sin, most mobile champ of the game, Enchanted Crystal Arrow. So I think both teams have very clear routes to win.
Yeah, absolutely here. I really like what Dorado's gone for here. So Ariana going for the Cho'Gath. This is freshly changed around on the patch. They specifically are trying to make this champion back into his classic, top lane. He has always been kind of the anti-tank tank. At least that's what I feel like his identity has been in modern League of Legends as a top laner. He's really strong in the tank v tank matchups. He's got the most sustain because of that carnivore passive, and Vorpal Spike's dealing percentage max health damage means that he can be relevant in the side lane against another tank going into the late game. They've leaned into that even harder. His base attack speed's a little better on this patch. His Rupture, it does a little less damage, but his Vorpal Spikes do a little more of a percentage health boon when they are coming out. So they're trying to move Cho'Gath away from that Hail of Blades emphasis and making it better to go away from the AP builds and more into the tank builds with the Grasp of the Undying. We'll see if Ariana goes for that here. I think that he very well might, and that Dorado's going to just end up with a double marksman, double frontline composition, play out front to back team fights, and trust that Gravity on what is not the highest damage comp in the world might actually struggle to work through this frontline before Fatakan and Kaido work through them.
Yeah, I think with these Cho'Gath buffs, I think you're going to find a sweet spot where you no longer really need Hail of Blades to do the most damage. You can go Grasp, but I still like that Battle Song, Hallowed Radiance route where you have, Dead Man's also coming online. If you need more AP damage, maybe Rift Maker, but this mixture where, as you said, there's so much in the kit of Cho'Gath where you don't need to buy as many stats. You're getting the health from the ultimate. You're getting so much extra damage from your max health percentages. So you can go for these more niche items and combine them to provide not only a front line, but also a buff to your entire team. And just the amount of CC packed into this champion's kit is unbelievable. And when you're fighting so often, as Dorado will be around that Lamb's Respite, it makes it easier to hit the silences, it makes it easier to hit the ruptures. And we're only talking about that's from Cho'Gath's perspective. Now you look at Galio, you look at Rakan, and it doesn't look like Gravity has too much dive, because Sion's probably going to be trying to play in between, trying to peel off, but Lee Sin is going to have a awfully hard time this game, and it's going to rely heavily on Kitsuo's experience and practice on this champion to be relevant throughout the game.
Yeah, sure will be. Really need to see this guy get active in the early game. It feels like in modern League of Legends, the Lee Sin has kind of fallen off. He's kind of been replaced by the Vi in a lot of ways as that kind of evergreen champion, especially in the way that the Vi doesn't require the high level of mechanical execution, doesn't leave the windows for the other player to outplay, but still does that same role coming into the later game of being really reliable lockdown, a little chunk of burst, but more importantly, being able to go deep behind enemy lines and capture one of those critical characters. The Lee Sin still can do that, and I think arguably in this specific situation could be better at it than the Vi, because Dragon's Rage will get you outside of a Lamb's Respite in a way that the Vi cannot and will not. But I mean, it's going to be really hard not to get interrupted, right? Mixture can quickness you out of your combo at any time. Shochi can taunt you out of your combo at any time. A Rupture thrown down on top of whoever you're Sonic waving towards can very well knock you out of the combo as well. So like you said, going to have to be very tight play from Kitsuo here, or just going to have to, snowball his team ahead in the early game and kind of treat himself as a bridge and then play front to back around Olorum's tanky Scion. Robbie Bob going to need to be clutch in this game, going to need to have a really strong Victor performance, because without him, the team is very much lacking in damage. I have no concerns about Robbie Bob's ability to execute that, though. This guy, one of the strongest mid laners in the OQ. Both of these mid laners, some of the strongest in this OQ. And whichever one is able to build up a lead over the other is certainly going to have a massive advantage in this series.
I think Victor is going to be very, very favored due to some of these mage item buffs. I think the new Crypto Bloom is going to be very good on him. I shouldn't say new, but the buffed Crypto Bloom. The heal is reducted a little bit, but you're getting so much penetration, you get good damage, and it's going to be so easy for him to continue relying on those big AoE passives and abilities, especially when facing this Dorado Gaming comp of, you know, almost complete frontline of the Galio, Cho'Gath, Rakan. If you're putting down the Gravity Field, if you're putting down the Chaos Storm, you're hitting all of them. And I'm looking now and realizing that Calamity has really good angles always onto the backline of Kaido and Otacon, because the Encore, you've got a perfect lineup, because Cho'Gath and Galio are always going to be right in front of them.
Yeah, definitely true here. So I do hear us loading on in the background. Think we are going to be ready to get on to Summoner's Rift for game number 1. Dorado Gaming against Gravity, both 2-0 in the bracket so far, both fighting to move further in winners and get themselves those double shots at qualification to the promo tournament.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
Yep, and we're seeing here Mixture taking advantage of that buffed unsealed spellbook. Now with the ability to have a new summoner spell, I believe it's every 90 seconds into the late game. So some of these team fights where you need a quick turnaround, you're fighting over a dragon, and then depending on the outcome of the fight, you have to reset and run straight to the Baron pit or straight to the Otacon pit. Being able to use that unsealed spellbook to grab another relevant summoner spell, an exhaust or an ignite, or even a teleport, you know, it's going to make Mixture a lot more impactful throughout the game.
Yeah, definitely agree with that one. So love the use of the unsealed spellbook. I mean, we've seen Mixture really take to this summoner. He was busting it out in ACL Friday night. He's busted it out yesterday. I've gotten to watch nothing but Mixture for the last 3 days, and he's really made good use of this one. The buffs on that summoner, or on that keystone rather, mean that once you're fully stacked up, you get a new summoner every 90 seconds now. That's pretty useful. It's pretty big game to be able to just so consistently cycle through those. You basically always have something useful coming into a later fight. So he's made good use of them so far. He's had some sick TPs. He's had some smite steals. He's really made the most of that summoner spellbook.
Reminds me of the old, the OG release Silas, where his ultimate was on like a 15-second cooldown. And Shochu, walking up here, has Phase Rush, opts not to go for that grasp, being the melee into ranged matchup, but Victor for Robbie Bob, he's very experienced on this champ, as we mentioned, but I'm wondering if he's going to go for the Q upgrade, 2 points in Q start. I've seen it a lot in the LCK in this range. Kitsuo is already top lane.
Yeah, Kitsuo looking to make a move early on. Will find Ariana pushed up too far and picks up the first blood. We said that Lee Sin had to get active early, and Kitsuo makes good on that promise here pre-3 minutes.
It makes total sense. You know, really, really well done. You know that Kindred is going to just be power farming, wants to just hit the 50-50 and be on the same side as the marked Scuttle Crab. So you can afford to do a quick gank, recall, go to your other quadrant, because there's no real way Kindred can respond without risking losing that mark, as going in is Mixture, trying to... Oh, here's the respawn.
Yep, getting right back in there and nearly going to be able to take down Alorum, but he does get to flash away in time. Good return damage there on towards Mixture in the bottom lane. Will be able to stay sustained up, and we saw them play this lane yesterday. The double heals actually do stack up, especially in the early laning phase. If he's able to land these Gleaming Quills, there's another one. You can see these guys are back up over half HP already.
Yeah, and that constant pressure in that double ranged matchup, having that sustain makes it so much more bearable. There's only one knockup, but you see how much damage Foticon's able to put out without even being in any risk because of that range hitting through. And just want to mention, unfortunately, Kaido didn't get the dice roll. The mark was on the bottom scuttle, which Kitsuo went and picked up, so going to have to work a little bit harder to get that first stack. The key number is 4 if you're watching, and a Kindred fan is Foticon, looking to really make this fight work.
Yeah, not quite going to be able to get that knock up onto Sage Wabe. He's able to use the Ghost to outpace it and escape it. And I love this move from Kaido. I think most Kindreds are aware of it now, but he leaves the top scuttle alive for long enough for his mark to just migrate over there. So he is going to get the mark off the first scuttle. He can keep that top scuttle safe for long enough to guarantee that he does. So the fact that it spawned on the wrong side, you can kind of control the RNG a little bit as long as you feel confident in your ability to defend one side of the map.
That's very well done, and he's also sticking around, choosing to recall up on this top side just in case. And if he stays around long enough, he might catch Kitsuo going for the gank. Luckily, he stops his recall, so we're going to see a 2v2.
Yeah, they're going to have a full-on fight for this one. Real dangerous, though, to fight this Lee Sin earlier on. Just so much high base damage there, and Ariana, fully aware of this, just flashes away from the Sonic Wave, decides he doesn't want that smoke.
Yeah, and he's happy with the CS advantage he's gained already. So he can just continue to push in. He's got the cloth armor, has the Doran's ring, and just continuing to utilize those spells to push the Scion off the wave. Has so much AoE, so it's so easy to take the entire wave down without actually being at much risk. As I was saying earlier, Kindred need to get those 4 marks for that range increase. Early game feels a little bit rough trying to do anything as Kindred with the low range, but once you get that 1 range increase, it really opens up so many more opportunities in team fights, as Lorem's pretty low here. I don't know how close Ariana is to 6.
Yeah, I mean, once he gets it, though, this is a big feast target for sure. It doesn't look like he's too concerned with the minions. Oh, he was just one minion away. That could have been so close, but will be able to stay alive. Does look like they're starting on the Dragon on the opposite side, so Gravity should be able to secure this one without too much trouble. Kaido's en route, but I think he's going to show up too late to do much of anything, although they're actually slowing it down as the bot lane returns to the minions. There could be a steal opportunity here. Kaido's over the wall. It's going to be a smite fight. Meanwhile, Ariana looking for a fight in the top side. Who's going to win out on this one? It does get smited by Kitsuo. Here comes Shochi with the heroic entrance. Already forced out is Kaido. Double knockup found by Mixture. All Calamity returning fire with those high notes. Kitsuo not going to be able to get taunted. Manages to dash back to Sage Wabe. Chasing forward with the volley. Here comes the root. Flashed away from by Fatakon. Mixture will be able to get out of there as well. Nobody drops, but the Dragon does go to Gravity.
That's a lot of fighting. Not too much for an outcome, but just too early. You've got Senna and Ashe as your AD carries, so you don't have a ton of damage early. Shochi sticking around, trying to see if they can catch him up, but no flash on the Galio, and minions in the middle means it's going to be hard to get access.
Ooh, very early Ignite from Mixture. Knows that they can take down All Calamity. Squishy on the Seraphine, and Shochi picks up the first kill. They're going to have to disengage from this. Sage Wabe able to get safely under the turret, but good stay from Shochi pays off for Dorado.
Extremely well done, and that's partially due to the fact that Fatakon utilizing the new buffs to Senna, the increased amount of crit you get per stack, able to go for that serrated Dirk early, get a lot more damage in the minion or in the laning phase, rather than trying to work towards a full crit item that would scale much better. But, you know, this is a part of the game that Senna needs a little bit of help. So going for these earlier oriented items is certainly worth it, as you can see in that outcome. I do want to kind of rewind back just a moment to that Dragon. It's not as much as a flip because the Lee Sin second Q proc has that execute factor to it.
True.
So it's much more difficult for Kindred. Also the fact that Kindred didn't have 6, so you're pretty much just relying on Galio to save your life, as Kitsuo gonna have to ward hop away. Grub's still going to be able to be contested, but Dorado's already got 1, so they could just leave it at that.
Yeah, well, they've got 2 now. Kitsuo going to try to stop the full objective. Forced to flash, though. Long cooldown on that safeguard at level 1. Not going to be able to reuse it to escape. Full grubs to Dorado, so makes it a little more bearable to have lost that Dragon earlier. All Calamity's no flash, just got hit by a fully charged taunt, and everybody's on top of him. All Calamity disrespects the engaged potential, and Shochi punishes.
And it going on Kaido is so important there. Been kind of strangled out from certain early game objectives. They got the grubs, and that is going to be very good for this dual marksman comp later on, but really looking to get this gold, get this Kraken Slayer finish. You can start working on those other attack speed items. I'm very happy to see this build coming out of Kaido. I'm not as big a fan of the Triforce build on Kindred as I am this attack speed build, as Shochi really in a bad spot here.
Yeah, caught on the wrong side. Great move by Robbie Bob to step up and interrupt the Justice Punch. But Shochi will be able to walk out of that one. Takes a substantial chunk. Still has the TP, by the way. Didn't use it to return to mid after that roam bot earlier. So he suffered a little bit in the CS department, but that means he still has the tool now if he does get forced out of this lane.
Yeah, and I want to take this opportunity quickly to just, as Mixture is trying to find some more poke and engage. You know, we talk very highly of Alorum. I think everyone who's a fan of this NA scene does because of his just constant presence, but some legitimate praise this way. He was down like 20 CS and had no real way to catch up, and now down 3 has really come back in this lane, taking advantage of the presence of Kitsuo topside to, you know, fully climb all the way back. And thanks to some of these tank items being super just having so many different use cases, being able to go for that hollowed radiance is going to make it so much easier to lane against the Cho'Gath, but it's also going to give him so much more lane presence later with the wave clear that you get additionally from that hollowed radiance. So just wanted to, you know, praise Alorum for a second there as he continues to do well, as Robbie Bob having to expend that flash to get away from the incoming gank from Kaido.
Nice angle from Shochi there, able to force out that summoner spell. And yeah, as you're saying, I mean, you're really feeling the Vorpal spikes buffs, though, as we watch these trades. It's doing so much damage here, even through Spectre's Cowl, which gives you magic resist, of course. This magic damage is just chunking Alorum down time after time, and the sustain from Carnivore just letting Ariana ignore any clapback. I do want to see Kitsuo try to get involved in some of these other lanes, as we do hit a pause. I think particularly mid, getting that first kill early on was plenty good, but I really do think he wants to get these carries online because these tank items are going to start coming through for Ariana and Shochi sooner or later, and it's going to start to become really difficult for this composition to cut through them on Gravity. Oh, we're already back.
Alright, perfect timing. And now we get our spectator pause. Give me a second to talk about what you just said so perfectly. Is I think early game, some of these junglers that need resources themselves, they'll go to these tank v tank matchups because they know they have a lot of CC on their side, so it's easy for them to get a kill. But you're 100% right. You need to think about, when you're playing Lee Sin, you've got to think about the rest of your team as a jungler. How are you going to get Victor to a point where he can really do a lot of damage? Ashe is on your bottom side, is your other damage dealer, so they're going to need a bit of help as well, because it's going to take Ashe a long time to deal damage and be more than just a secondary support utility. So that is going to have to happen sooner or later, because Galio's about to finish Hollowed Radiance. At that point, it's going to be difficult for this Blackfire Torch Victor to do any damage to him at all. And Cho'Gath is not going for the Battle Song build, going for the full tank Heartsteel build with those 2 Giants belts in the pocket. So just Cho'Gath, if he's going full HP, it's going to be very, very difficult for Lee Sin or Crit Ashe to do much of anything to him.
Yeah, this is a tough fight for Gravity here, as it does look like they are interested in this one. Robbie Bob is flashless, which makes me very concerned for him. It does look like the rest of Dorado are coming in for this fight. Gravity have been able to group up on the top side. They do manage to find their way on towards Mixture here, but stays alive as the heroic entrance come through from Shochi, just giving that extra magic damage shield. The dragon is the focus. It will go down to Kaido, and now Dorado are ready to back on away. Dawning Shadow comes across the team, also shields up Ariana on the opposite side as needed, who is just proxy farming at this stage. And Dorado, they get what they came for. They managed to back on away, and they are steadily building up their gold lead here, about 1.5K now.
That was a really impressive smite, because as we mentioned on the first dragon, Kitsuo had the Q marked on the dragon, had that execute, but Kaido able to get it away as a nuts dive.
Nice placement on the last embrace there. Fatakan makes that play happen, and now Calamity going to fall afterwards. Great job by the Dorado bot lane, pulling the trigger on the thinnest margins and making it happen.
Yeah, and this is going to set Fatakan quite far ahead, I believe, at this point, with Kraken Slayer built for Kindred, full item for Senna on this back. We are going to see both of these marksmen come online, and Unfortunately for Dorado, biggest, as you see the spellbook teleport there for Mixture, biggest objective to fight for now will be that Rift Herald when it comes up. I'd like to see a swap out of them now, which we are seeing them get ready for. But if you're on the side of Gravity, you've got to start trying to build an advantage because you're just slowly bleeding the game away at this point.
Yeah, you really are. And again, that's going to have to be Robbie Bob. We said it in draft, and it remains true now. He, of course, is a very difficult player to take down in lane. He knows his limits. He plays to them appropriately. He respectfully flashes when he needs to. And it's not like they've been able to find plays onto him. But I want to see Kitsuo try to get in here and punish Shochi. Robbie Bob's going to have flashback here in about a minute. That's going to be the time to look for it. But right now, Ariana going to have the backing of his bottom lane and will pick up first turret. That's going to be feats of strength going to Dorado.
And I really am impressed with Ariana coming into this tournament. Almost all the talk was about his ability to play these strong side carry top laners. And now in this first game against your strongest opponent, picking this Cho'Gath, who I believe, as we've been talking about, one of the strongest champs in the game, even before the buffs, but now able to facilitate so well for your team and allow Dorado to pick this dual marksman comp and execute it without too much risk, having those dual frontline champs. So just huge props to him coming in here as an import as well, going to cause a little bit of uncomfortability. But speaking of import, Fatakan strongly taking back over that mid wave, has the Yumu's in his pocket, so he knows that he can kind of speed out of there at a moment's notice.
Ooh, blocked there by Mixture, but very well may cost him his life. Dawning Shadow going to get the extra shielding as his heroic entrance, and Mixture survives it all. Last Embrace snares up to Kitsuo, gets all Calamity caught up in his own mistake, and they're trying to back on away, but the health bars are so low for Gravity. Ariana in here off the teleport, locks down Kitsuo, and makes it the first kill. Just his punch connects on Asage Wabe. Reaching forward is Kaido to be able to lock down Robbie Bob, and he is stuck inside the pit now. Flash is back up, but I don't know if he's getting out of this either way. Flash is back over. Fatakan not going to follow. Mixture will, though, finding the knock up off the grand entrance, and Robbie Bob is caught on the wrong side of the map with few places left to go. Gonna try to step forward into Ariana here, just waiting on these cooldowns to see if he can clean up Mixture, but Fatakan coming around on the side, misses the laser, and that's it. Fatakan finishes off Robbie.
And you see how well they're able to execute this team comp, and even without the Shirelia's battle song for Cho'Gath, they just run them down. Constant pressure, Rakan able to keep going forward over and over again because of the shield, or the healing from Senna, from his own shields, from that locket, and never once did they falter. They knew that they could win no matter how long they chased, and now off of that, they're not just getting the gold from those kills, they're retaking the maps. I mean, while that chase was happening on Robbie Bob, Shochi was like, screw this, I'm TPing top, I want to get this pushed in. Gets it all the way to the tier 2. They took Rift Herald, and now they're able to reset and get back on the map just in time for this Infernal Drake to spawn. And if they want to fight again, it is going to be more risky, because fighting over this dragon, you won't have Land's Respite, you won't have that grand entrance, you will have the Rakan ultimate and probably Senna ultimate, but not having Lamb's Respite or Galio ult, those are two huge cooldowns they need.
Absolutely here. And I mean, listen, there's a lot of Dorado fans in the chat right now. I don't want to caster curse anything, but this looks better than either of Dorado's games against Novasphere yesterday. They are looking so composed, so clean on their execution. They make it happen again on the Sage Wabe, and they are just pushing this lead ever forward. Not a mistake to be seen.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see some of the cracks be exposed from this draft. With the Lee Sin, Victor, Ashe as your core damage dealers, there is not much damage to speak of. And when you look at the other side, yes, you only have Kindred and Senna, but when you insulate them as well as Dorado Gaming have, as well as Milania have, I mean, they just are able to play this game out so smoothly. It looks so easy, and it's not the easiest team comp to execute, because if even one of these marksmen get picked off in a fight, that's, you know, half of all of your damage gone, and you don't have much left to rely on. So going full tank Galio, full tank Cho'Gath, you have to have a lot of faith in these carries, and they seem to have that faith in Kaido and on Fodicon.
Absolutely. And I mean, Fodicon on this Senna especially, you know, this is a guy who you would really think the big picks to be afraid of are the stuff like that Callista, the stuff like the Lucian Nami, Lucian Melio duos that we saw yesterday. And they certainly are very dangerous picks of his, but this buffed up Senna looking like one that's got to be added to the list. And in this Fearless format, especially now that both qualification matches are best of 5, a little correction to the format after the last set of OQs, you're going to have a deep pool to be able to actually make it into the promo tournament. And that's one of those picks that's certainly going to help Fodicon get there, as great interrupt on the unstoppable onslaught from Mixture. Still not going to be able to pick them up the kill, though. Shochi coming in with a grand entrance.
Teleport behind.
Kicked away. Teleport is a little slow here from Ariana, although he is pretty quick on the Cho'Gath with those Swifties. Slowed up, over the wall comes Shochi, and they will pick off all Calamity, pushing the bot lane duo to 0-7-0 for Gravity.
I mean, just the constant pressure of Mixture and Fodicon, not just in the laning phase, but persisting throughout the game. I feel like they've really been joined at the hip throughout every phase of the game, and it's proving so fruitful. As you see, just 206, 007 bounties on both their heads, and now Kaido looking to pick up this turret. And I feel like this is the type of games you see played from top teams, and I'm talking about top teams in any competitive league. They're playing together, they are making very succinct calls, everyone's following them, and they are moving around the map, taking down all of the standing gold. They're not overextending for tier 2 turrets or trying to force down a lane. They're waiting for objectives to spawn. They're taking standing gold. I mean, just like you said, don't want to curse, but can't say enough good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Kitsuo's here as well, so they're going to be able to find him. Looking to try to scrape together extra resources wherever he can find them, but that does lead to the risk of getting caught out, and Dorado do just that. I think this Otacon is on the table here now that it spawned less than a minute ago. You got a lot of dead time ever since they moved around those grub spawns and stopped having objectives on the map every single minute of every single game. So there's these breaks where there's no dragon, there's no Baron or Herald. We're in one of them right now, but Dorado's so far ahead that they can really try to force something around this Otacon.
Certainly, and you see now Rabio committing a lot of spells onto Shochi.
He can't kill him.
Someone's gonna tell him that guy's got a hollowed radiance.
Yeah, oh, and Dawning Shadow might mean that Shochi kills Robbie. I don't know what to tell you about that one, Robbie. You're up against Merc Tread's Hollowed Radiance, Galio. You cannot kill that man.
Yeah, and even me, Platinum 80 carry can tell you that as long as Galio has mana, he can kill you, because his full combo does so much damage at any time in the game, even without much AP. And now it looks like going to be building towards an actual AP item, most likely something like Rift Maker. But imagine how terrifying it is going to be fighting into this comp then, because Cho'Gath has the true damage, will always have damage. Flash combo.
There's the Kitsuo combo that you're hoping for. They get the stun on a Fodicon. He flashes back away to create some space. They did manage to finish off Mixture. Ariana getting focused on by the full force of Gravity, and they will eventually melt down the Cho'Gath. It's a 2-for-1 so far, and the slows from Sagewabe mean they can keep moving. Here's Robbie Bob on the flank, but he doesn't have the ultimate. He used it in his one-on-one with Shochi. Still looking to chase them down, but slowed up by the piercing darkness, and Gravity can only settle for a +1 team fight.
Great execution. Kitsuo saw his angle and he took it without hesitation. Even continued behind that Gromp wall to find another sonic boom onto Senna. Not able to take them down, but able to ensure that they got a winning fight. Unfortunately, the timing was just off, as there are still 30 seconds until Dragon spawns. Everyone for Dorado will be up and available. So this is one of those times when you're behind in the game. They're down 5k now. You just have to take those kills, take the gold, get back to base, spend it as quickly as possible, and sprint back onto the map and say, hey, we did it once, we can do it again. It doesn't matter how far behind we are. If we can find another angle, we can make it work. And it looks like because of that timing, they just aren't able to retake control of Dragon soon enough, and they're going to have to concede.
Yeah, it does seem like they are in that territory here. The Dragon started on up by Kaido, and they will be able to finish that one off uncontested. Baron up in a minute 30. Will there be an opportunity to challenge for it here for Gravity? You got to believe that is where they plan to make their stand. Down quite a few summoners, but we'll at least have all ultimates available for that one.
Yeah, and they have to do it soon, because we're looking now at 2 items on Kindred, opting for that Black Cleaver. I think that's a sign that Kaido knows how far ahead they are, knows that he can go for what is essentially, in my eyes, for an AD Bruiser, a more supportive item, trying to get that armor shred for not only himself, but for Senna as well. And now Lord Dominic's Regard finished for Senna. If we could, production, get a look at the stack, should be at least 100 on Senna by now. So that means you're getting 50 crit from your Mist, and then you're getting 25 from the Rapid, 25 from the Lord Doms, if I'm doing my math right. So
yep.
2 item, 100% crit. Thinking that she's Yasuo or Yone or something running around the map with the Yumus in the pockets. Gonna be very tough to get in range even to kill this Senna.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, that buff, unnecessary. They could have just upped the drop rate on the Ghosts, and she would have been competitive again. Like, we've done this before. We're always, every time we raise up the Wraith drop rate, she gets good. Every time we drop it, she gets bad. I don't know why we also had to give her an extra 2% crit per 20 stacks, but we did. And now she's really, really strong.
Yeah, and since we don't have it, usually the key, if you're playing Senna well, if you're doing well in lane and getting your stacks well as Shochi, might actually be caught out here going to use Phase Rush and get away, but it's usually about 50 stacks per 10 minutes. So here at 25, should be at 100. Still chasing instead of going down to the Baron.
Yeah, 5 for 3k rather. Kitsuo over the wall looking for the smite. He gets it! Finds the steal against the Feast Smite combo of Dorado. Now they're all stuck in low health bars inside of the Lamb's Respite, doing their best to stay alive with Ariana in the front line. Sage Wabe continuing to fire away, dodging out of the ruptures on the backside. Alorum moving into that flank, covering the ramp. Less of the team is isolated, and Sage Wabe finds his moment, flashes forward, and finds a double kill for Gravity. Kitsuo connects the Sonic Wave to take down Mixture, and there's only 2 left standing for Dorado. Gravity wiped the fight.
It was single-digit HP. They messed up the Feast Smite just barely, and Kitsuo does not hesitate once again, grabs the Smite, and not only that, but they clean up, get 3 kills. Bounty, they're up in gold now.
Oh no, oh no. We were talking about how clean the game was. We did caster curse it. It just took a little bit longer. Big mistake on the Feast Smite combo from Dorado. Put Gravity back in a position to be competitive. And so much shutdown gold, like you said, catapults them into the gold lead.
Now, I mean, Ashe is building towards a 3rd item here, not going for the Infinity Edge, knowing that that crit amplification really doesn't matter on Ashe. I mean, I have to take this moment. Robbie Bob, I feel like this build, a little lacking, could have gone that Crypto Bloom, continued to buff up your teammates, but having to go Void Staff second, really need to see this Leandri's completed fast, because the tankiness still exists on the side of Dorado Gaming. It's still going to be difficult for them to cut through Galio and Cho'Gath.
Wow.
But now, with these completed items coming through, Kindred finds herself a little bit behind now, sitting on 2 completed items compared to Lee Sin. I know that Maw component is not a full item, but essentially once you have that, you might as well have the full Maw. You get that magic damage shield. And I'm also questioning that decision because you're really only using that on Cho'Gath and Galio. I don't think they're presenting enough of a threat where you wouldn't just go Sterix Gage there, but I don't want to be that guy, that caster that nitpicks every single item decision. So I'll trust the guy who's been playing competitive League for more than I've been playing the game at all.
Ooh, good damage on to Kitsuo there. Dawning Shadow to keep him low. TP's being channeled. One from Shochi, one from Alorum. There is the Enchanted Crystal Arrow going to go in onto Ariana. Shochi is here to back him up as the backup frontliner. Big kick through two into the Encore. Locks down the whole team. And Fadakan is just outside of Lamb's Respite. He's taken down early in the fight. And just like that, so much damage is gone from Dorado's roster. Shochi falls, as does his carry. And it is a double kill to Kitsuo. The dragon will be taken as well.
I mean, this is just incredible. Gravity held strong. They never got desperate. They never tried to take something crazy, and now they are not even going even in these fights. They're just straight up stomping these fights. Fadakan, as you mentioned, just barely outside the Lamb's respite, not able to stay alive. And once Senna goes down, all of your damage is on Kindred. And once your damage is down, you know the fight's over. So Kaido just retreats. So there's no way that they can possibly win. No Baron, no objectives up on the map right now. So they're going to just take a small moment to reset. Kitsuo is going to try and grab some camps, get some standing gold. Sage Wabe going to grab these Raptors, getting towards that Bloodthirster, trying to get as much damage as possible onto this Ashe. And you're starting to see now in some of these fights, Victor, 3 items, Ashe starting to be able to deal some really good damage. And with that Maw finished, Lee Sin, this is the part of the game where the most practiced Lee Sin players are able to make it still be useful. If you're not as well versed on the champ, you're kind of just going in and dying right away. But Kitsuo has the reps, he has the games, he knows how to find angles, continue to facilitate for his teammates. And again, let's shout out Alorum. The guy hasn't died once and he's playing Scion. I think that champ's whole point is to die, but he's able to...
Wasting the passive.
Yeah, I know. He's, if anything, we actually should be saying he's not playing right. But going for that Titanic wants to try and continue to give some damage output for this team. And, I mean, this is... Now we've got to talk about Dorado has to try and find an angle. They've got to try and find a pick, and it looks like Alorum is going to be the one. But he's just going to sprint out of there.
Yeah, gets out of there, the Unstoppable Onslaught, no issues that time. Although here's Shochi thinking he found a flank. Kitsuo realizes what's up. Big 3-man taunt coming out of Mixture. And the lockdown on Sage Wabe, that's the target they want. Shochi finishes him with the Winds of War, and all Calamity falls as well. Dorado find their angle. 5 versus 3, pushing into the base with both marksmen standing.
This is what happens when you see 2 of the highest level teams in these OQs play against each other. Mixture just showed us the quickness that they can come back into this game, and now in a 5v2, 5v3.
They got Robbie. He's forced to flash. Ariana chops him down, and everybody funnels into the Lamb's Respite, but it only lasts a couple of seconds. Gravity are perfect aced by Dorado. All 5 members standing. I spoke too soon. Alorum gets Shochi on the backside, tanks that man's KDA. But Dorado Gaming in another back and forth game. The Nova Sphere pattern continues. Looks like they will finish this off. Gravity trying to defend, but it will be finished off. Kaido and Fatakan measure down the Nexus. Dorado Gaming start off 1-0.
Incredible resilience shown by both teams, but in the end, Dorado, that early lead, it just allowed them, they didn't have to claw back really. They just had to find their moment. And shout out Mixture. That was an incredible engagement, and Senna's ultimate doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but when you're able to funnel it onto essentially all of the important members of the enemy team, you have that grand entrance following from behind. You just kill all of them before they can even have a moment to click on the map. So really, really well done, and huge shout out to Mixture for that play.
Yeah, and what we've talked about is going to be a series that is a showdown between 2 of the top support prospects in the region. Mixture draws first blood right there. I mean, they were winning the laning phase the whole time through. You could give a lot of that credit to Fatakan executing very, very well on the Senna, but coming into this later game, there were some great encores, but oh boy, is that engage from Mixture what locks the game down and pulls Dorado right back into the win.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the damage from those 80 carries, really shows you just you still hear people saying to this day about how, you know, this role is very weak and, you know, there aren't a lot of variety. You're seeing Varus every single game, Ezreal, Callista even after the nerfs, but seeing how useful both these 80 carries were able to be, Fatakan coming in as an import and really showcasing why he is worth that spot, carrying throughout the course of this game. And I'm really impressed with just the resilience. I already used that word, but the way that they played this game, you see how much their gold lead fell off and then continued to crater, but they understood that they still had a comp that could function and find a win condition, and they did it. They just engaged as soon as they saw the targets, went with full faith, and rewarded with game one.
Yeah, it looks. I think we've got a replay here. It's not as relevant as it would have been if Gravity had completed the comeback, but I just want to call out this fight because of how good of a job they do isolating Fatakan away from the Lamb's Respite and melting him down before he can get over to it. So we'll check out a massive encore here. And the Lamb's Respite comes on through. They stun him just outside of it, and they finish him off before he can get back in. That's so crazy.
Yeah, and you see here Kaido is trying to make the most of the angle. They're all bunched up, but he's sitting on a Black Cleaver and a Kraken Slayer. He really just can't do any damage, so has to just, you know, cut tail and leave. But really well done. I mentioned in the draft that Seraphine is going to have good access to the back line, and Galio and Cho'Gath just stood right next to each other, gave the perfect lineup. And I mean, that's really why we keep touting today's matchup as the most, you know, high level matchup, because either one of these teams, I don't think anyone will be surprised coming out of this and heading on to the next round. And whichever team does fall, if we see a 2-0 or if we get sent to game 3, I think are going to be one of the favorites in the losers bracket. But when we look at that gold graph, we're not just talking about how much it flipped. You have to talk about where it was starting at. And Gravity won that fight just after flipping that massive gold lead.
I completely agree there. So great back and forth game number 1. Let's see if they are able to replicate it for game number 2. Gravity going to need a win here to stay alive in the winners bracket and avoid an early end to their weekend. We'll see if it will end up going the full 3 games. We're going to throw it to a quick break here before we get to draft for game number 2, but we will see you all after a short break. Welcome back, everybody, to today's broadcast of the NACL Open Qualifiers, where we have got ourselves Gravity down 0-1 against Dorado Esports. Same sides for game number 2, but 10 brand new champions. Jack, let's see if Gravity are going to be able to turn this series around.
I think it's very possible. I think if they just make a couple key adjustments in their draft and just grab some stronger champs that are, able to do their exact same win con with just a little bit more in the kit, I think that they are more than capable of sending us to game 3, especially seeing as a lot of the members of their team played that game quite well. Robbie Bob, once he started getting those items, was very impactful. Alorum all game was very, very present, able to stay alive, not really giving anything over on the side lane. And once they did turn that game around, we saw Sage Wabe starting to deal a ton of damage on the Ashe. So I think maybe we just make a couple adjustments and try and get some of these more high prio meta champs and you really make it work. And on the flip side for Dorado, that game 1 is a very isolated composition. So you didn't really take a lot of meta stuff off the board. You're playing that Senna Galio comp, or that Senna Kindred comp, where, you can't really replicate that with other champions. So now they're just kind of going back to stock standard League of Legends. So I think both sides have a lot of options here.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of really comfortable picks taken off the board for Gravity, right? That Kitsuo, Lee Sin. I do think Sion, probably one of the best champions in Alorum's wheelhouse in the current meta. You brought up how much Robbie Bob has been playing that Victor as of late, although he's got a very deep pool in his own right. He's been playing this game for a very, very long time. So I'm very curious to see what Gravity's draft looks like in this game number 2. I would like to see them lean a little more into Sage Wabe and All Calamity. All Calamity has some pocket picks that I think can be quite dangerous. He's a big proponent of the Maokai support. I think he's quite good on that. He also has shown us he's got some very dangerous Thresh as well. We got to see an ACL on Friday. I think that's another pick that you should be respecting if you're Dorado, and that they can use to try to be a little bit of an X factor up against Fatikan and Mixture.
I was going to mention Maokai because I said, while I don't think Kitsuo would love playing it, I'm sure Alorum will play it, and I bet they flex it down there. So grabbing that maybe R3 or R2, leaving Dorado Gaming guessing where it's going to go. If it goes top lane, it's Maokai, so it really doesn't care. If it gets put behind, just wants to kind of soak up some gold under turret. But going bottom lane, it really achieves much of what a support like Leona does, of just going in, locking you down, and making it so, something like, we were talking about this earlier, more so for Fatikan, but something like a Callista pairs very well with a Maokai. Being able to lock down that target, get all those spears in, makes really good trading patterns. Looks like we're seeing the exact same bans so far as of game 1. It makes total sense because, Poppy's flex, Sejuani, as you mentioned, flex, but most likely for Alorum up there. Mbessa, I heard Nemesis called Mbessa the new Renekton, where it's like every top laner just loves it, gives you so much presence in lane, you've got pretty good idea of how you play out the rest of the game, you've always got kill pressure throughout the laning phase. So I think taking that away is more so for Alorum to say, like, I just want to play my stuff, I don't want you rolling around this top lane and making montage plays on me.
I was going to say the real proof that it's the new Renekton would be if Alorum doesn't want to play it. That is instead going to be banning it on both sides. No hate to Alorum. Love that guy, but he's never been a big Renekton guy either. And it would not surprise me if the Mbessa is one that he would prefer to ban versus play. There's going to be the first pick on the Gwen for Ariana up here in the top lane. That has been one of his best champions throughout this season. Classic carry style for him. We're going to move away from the tanks after busting out the Cho'Gath in game number 1, and going to be a tough champ to answer here if you are Alorum. They're going to instead lean into their bottom lane, grab themselves that Ezreal for Sage Wabe, one of his personal favorites. And this does open up a powerful Enchanter angle for All Calamity, or you could go for one of those more roaming, ganking style champs as well.
Yeah, also a really tough spot for Gravity to counter the Gwen because there's no Cho'Gath, there's no Galio. I don't know how much Alorum really wants to be playing Rumble in a matchup like this. Probably wants to stick more towards some sort of weak side, wants to just play to just absorb as much pressure as possible. And I know with Al Calamity here, he pretty much, like, he loves those styles of those enchanters and facilitating or those roamers, but I think already we're setting up a pretty good Braum angle because, you know, Vi Gwen, they just want to dive in, and Braum, one of the best champs in the game at preventing that, or at least stalling that. The Xin Zhao Vi, I feel like I've seen this matchup 1,000 times throughout Fearless drafts. It's the classic handshake, as looks like Dorado is going to commit to this dive. Kai'Sa has really skyrocketed in priority as some more diving top laners have become meta, people recognizing the strength of this hybrid on-hit build and how much your damage profile can be extended. And also with the new lane of going for that static shiv early, it does cut down on your damage a bit, but it gives you so much wave clear in the early game and 400 gold cheaper.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of going for the Kai'Sa here. I would often expect them to either lock down a support that goes well with the jungle they've already selected, or go for a mid lane duo alongside the Vi. Instead, here they do opt for that Kai'Sa as a counter pick to the Ezreal. And here is a flex pick Shen. I do think it's very likely this is for Alorum in the top lane. It's good against the Gwen. It's something that he's comfortable playing, and really, frankly, overbuffed. It's a strong champion right now. It was already starting to see a little bit of play before the last round of buffs, and now it is really, really powerful. So good duo alongside the Xin Zhao as well, and they'll be able to get themselves a strong engage support to go with it. So going to just start off banning away some of those critical supports, and happy to have locked down a top matchup that Gravity likes.
Yep, and with that Braum now taken away, I always mention during my weekly league cast that support in these best of threes is the quickest pool to get pinched. There are only about 5 or 6 reliable engage supports, and after game 1, Rakan is gone, and now Braum, Poppy, Alistar, Rel, all gone. No Nico either, so you have to really start... You know, if you're Dorado, you kind of get to choose what support the enemy team plays. They force them onto that Leona by taking away the Braum by the Poppy. So now they can really, you know, orient these next 2 picks around the expected Leona. They opt for that Nautilus. Has no problem with champs coming into him. It doesn't have to use that hook. And the Taliyah pick paired up. Shochi, I normally think of Shochi as playing some more away from like the tip top of the mid pool, but that certainly doesn't mean he's not capable of playing the stuff like Taliyah that is constantly sitting at the most high play rate.
Yeah, frankly, I'm surprised we didn't see a ban towards this Taliyah. I think it's one of the best duos that you can get alongside the Vi. Really, really reliable kill combo there, especially up against something like the Ezreal, where you're really hoping to be able to keep that safe. But it's also a pretty safe blind pick here, as Robbie Bob is going to get the R5. So they take themselves a Leona here, and you know, banning Rel and Alistar. I mean, Nautilus is right there for your boy Mixture, so he's going to have no problem finding a champion to play. It's the Annie for Robbie Bob, the freshly buffed Annie. So has a little bit more power in the tank now, not so indexed into Tibbers. Now gets a little bit more magic pen all around, a little bit extra damage all around for the rest of the combo to make use of. We saw Shochi play it yesterday for Dorado. Gravity now going to bust it out here as a extra little bit of AoE CC. I mean, they've got CC for days on this Gravity team. A really powerful team fighting setup as long as you can keep Sage Wabe safe.
Yeah, and I like the decision here from both mid lane picks because you've got a lot of dash on the side of Gravity. You've got Xin Zhao, Shen, Leona, so picking that Taliyah gives you a lot of safety. Well, you know, 4 of your 5 champs want to go in. Taliyah will give you that security that if you get caught off guard, they can't just dive onto you as well. But on the other side, not only did Annie receive the buffs to almost her entire kit, except for Tibbers damage, but one of the big things is Malignance. Only 5 HP buff, but it's still a cheaper item. It does very well with Annie, so that kind of gives Tibbers back a little bit of damage. And when you think about the fact that if you have Sork Shoes and, you know, 2 levels into Tibbers, you've got so much magic pen for so little gold. It's really, really, really cost effective. And when you're looking into a full dive comp, you're not really using Tibbers for the damage at that point. When Vi, Kai'Sa, Nautilus decide to go in, you just throw them down and get a 3-man stun, and it really stops what Dorado wants to be doing.
It really does. So I am certainly going to be looking for that Annie to be a major force in the mid game here, and that's what Gravity's going to need, right? I think Robbie Bob got to spend a lot of time kind of farming off on his own, but they didn't get a lot of opportunities to make good on it because of how far ahead Dorado were able to get. Of course, that all went out the window after Kitsuo had a couple of sick Lee Sin plays in a row, but I don't know that you're going to be able to rely on that in this game at number 2. Yes, Xin Zhao can do insect plays, but they're a little bit less common, and there's going to be a little bit less mobility available for him. I think Gravity would much rather play a more standard game out and get to that Baron at a little bit more equal of a state or ahead of a state compared to how game number 1 went.
Yeah, certainly. And still, though, one thing that remains from game 1 is both the junglers have pretty good 2v2s on both sides. Obviously, Shen going to be a little bit less damage-oriented early game compared to the Gwen. But if you can bait out that Unraveled Earth, Xin Zhao Annie will be able to lock down Talia for quite some time. And, you know, just about the only part of the game where Vi will be in a difficult spot would be that early game. I've seen this matchup go both ways, but because of the increased attack speed on the side of Xin Zhao in that 1v1 early game, takes Vi a little bit longer to win that matchup. Then I want to take a flip onto the bot side. This Kai'Sa Nautilus combo, I think, is one of the most reliable because not only can Nautilus apply the plasma, get the lockdown, but also do a decent amount of damage on his own. A lot of people like the Leona Kai'Sa matchup, but I think where Leona has a little bit more CC, doesn't have as much damage output, and Kai'Sa does take a couple of items to ramp up and really start dealing a lot herself.
Yeah, I mean, this game's just so much in Sagewabe's hands, too. He really is going to need to show up on this Ezreal. This is one of his best champions. It's one of his personal favorites. We've seen him have huge games on, thinking back to Polestar last season, was very, very strong for that team. And I think he's going to need to be able to really show up here and make a lot of plays for Gravity to be able to come on out and take this to a game at number 3.
Yeah, and the one thing that Ezreal needs to be a menace in these games is uptime. He needs enough time to get multiple spell rotations out and power that Mystic shot. And I think with the team comp around him, that won't be too hard to get. You've got Annie constantly putting out stuns. Xin Zhao is a great frontline. Shen obviously provides that massive shield, and Leona can lock down just about everyone on the team. So Sagewabe can keep himself alive and keep himself in a position to deal damage. Certainly should be able to carry this game. And if last game is any indicator, he was able to stay in the game despite how much pressure was on the bottom side, caught up very well, got his items on Ashe, and was able to consistently put out damage and find really good enchanted crystal arrows, not only to help facilitate kills for himself, but to set up more CC from Calamity using that encore on Seraphine. So that is one thing I think we should talk about, is the synergy between this bottom lane. I believe it was either end of last year or maybe even last split, Calamity was with a different, or Sagewabe was with a different support.
Yep.
Now them coming together now on this Gravity roster, they are, as we said, the young guys when put next to all of these vets. So really going to see which of these rosters can leverage some of the synergy they've built this year.
Yeah, and I mean, and they were with, both of these are new duos, right? Fatakan and Mixture, actually the newer of the two duos, as Mixture been playing with Sushi for quite a bit, played with Shochi on that Respawn Esports in the last OQ. Sushi now moving on as a substitute for Near Airport, getting some reps in the NACL this split, and now going to be paired on up with Fatakan, another really exciting bot laner. He's really had a great deal of it since his debut, to be able to really elevate himself as one of the best supports up and coming and get some of those great duos alongside him. Whereas, like you said, yeah, I mean, Calamity wasn't even playing comp in 2024. So getting to join up with Sagewabe, another rising star here so early, I think it's been a great boon to him. We followed Gravity on the Aegis stream last OQ and their run, and they were looking pretty good for a long time. Calamity got to farm a couple of really good highlights there. So them getting to continue to grow together, especially while Sagewabe continues to play with this core that he was on with the peak performers last year in ACL, really, really good for him as well. The Kitsuo, Alorum, Robbie Bob trio, been with Sagewabe now for the better part of the last year and looking to grow on the success that they've already experienced. Is now we're into game number 2. Welcome to Summoner's Rift. Gravity are full sending all 5 down towards the bottom.
And Fadakon's going to be very, very careful. If he's standing in an awkward spot of this tri-brush, could be in big trouble.
Yeah, might be looking to get started. Will be able to get out of there. Fatakan constantly on the duty of waiting in the tri-brush and is always positioned correctly to avoid getting picked off and taken down.
That's a scary bush to sit in. A lot of people stand on that bottom lane brush so that they can just peek around the wall if they see people coming. But Fatakan, he's been playing this game for quite a long time. When we were talking about both of these bottom lanes being newer pairings, you know, showcasing that mixture, has some pretty big shoes to fill next to Fatakan, because with FUT Esports, played with the likes of Tempt, likes of Asper, 2 Korean exports who are pretty big names in the tier 2 ERL scene. So Fatakan used to playing with some very high-level talent on his team. And the other fun fact I wanted to mention, if you're a fan of tier 2 and tier 3 NA leagues, is Fatakan, while being Turkish, has not ever played with only 35, but Ariana has played with only 35 on a Team Phantasma roster. So a lot of ERL combos being made in today's matchup.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes you got to move over to the better region. A lot of these guys have come to that realization over the last year, joining up on new CLOL rosters. Fatakan and Ariana among those ranks, only 35 among those ranks as well. Do you want to highlight, I mean, for this game as well, we've kind of let it go by the wayside because feels like we're still so early in the bracket here on day number 2, but the nature of this format is, I mean, the winner of this will go on to play Cupid, right? We've already established that. The winner of, that'll be streamed here, by the way. The winner of that series is in a promotion match. They play a best of 5 to get into the promotion tournament. It really does happen that fast in the upper bracket. You narrow down from 64 to 2 pretty darn fast. So, I mean, these are the games where the competition really starts to heat up, where the reality of being able to compete for a spot in the NACL is becoming clearer and clearer. And that's got to be on the minds of all these players here, as Kitsuo looking for an invade early on here. Does not look like he's going to pursue it any further, as Shochi hovering in the wings.
Yeah, to speak more about that format, when you consider that with a 64 team as Sagewabe buffers that dredge line, in a 64 team bracket, you know, think how many teams we've already seen have to drop out. Once you get into that losers bracket, there are clear favorites. So you really want to string together some wins, because the momentum in some of these quick tournaments where, like you said, you win 3 or 4 best of 3s, all of a sudden you're right there. You're fighting to get into that promotion tournament. I mean, the momentum is extremely key, and that confidence that it will bring can really bring teams all the way through the tournament and into the NACL. As I wanted to check real quick, as Ghost is popped by Ariana. He thinks he can get this kill.
Yeah, you very well might be able to. I can't believe I didn't think to bring this up, but this is an exact matchup we watched in ACL Friday night. Ariana plays on an ACL team called Mint Gaming, and this Gravity team in its entirety plays on an ACL team called Next Level Esports. We watched Ariana... Oh, it was Ariana Ambessa against Alorum Shen. That's why I didn't think to say it earlier. But Ariana Gwen absolutely, or Ariana Ambessa rather, absolutely dumpstered Alorum Shen on that Friday night game. Got multiple solo kills, absolutely looked to nearly carry the game. Ellie did end up coming up with that one at the end, but curious to see if Ariana's Gwen will be able to repeat that performance here that he had on the Ambessa.
I wanted to take a look at Alorum's past on Shen, as this, you know, is actually going forward here, put himself in kind of a risky spot.
Ooh, nice flash from Kitsuo, a counter flash from Kaido to get himself away from that quick little strike. Does manage to avoid Wind Becomes Lightning, and does manage to keep himself alive as Shochi stunned up, countered up by All Calamity. And Shochi will flash away from that one. It's a trade of All Calamity's flash for Shochi's.
You mentioned continuing to trade in this mid lane, in this kind of control mage v control mage matchup. Robbie Bob just trying to collect as much CS as possible, backing with that blasting wand, most likely going towards that malignance early. And I think a minor but very smart decision not to go for any of those mana-related items, those lost chapters, just because of the fact that you get so much mana regen as Alorum going in again.
Yeah, Kitsuo dashing in after, and Ariana now caught on the wrong side of dodge. So here comes Kaido looking for the collapse, but I think he's going to be a little too late. Another big set of snips. Here's the punch, and it will be a 1-for-1 trade. But now Alorum, despite being 1 level up, oh, the Spirit's Refuge blocking those autos, making a big difference. He connects the taunt. Shochi's on his way up here, and it might just come down to being a full 2-for-2. Buff transfer complete. Shochi walking away from this one with the double buffs.
All went as planned. They want to try and put Robbie Bob behind. So now we've got double buffs onto the Talia, has the Tear of the Goddess. We're going to start stacking that up very quickly. But in reality, very well played by both sides. Kitsuo understanding there's no flash, and also Ghost has been expended. Let me take another trip back top lane. Kaido probably recognized that a little bit too late, tries to make the move. And as we see now, Kitsuo coming out of base, out of respawn, heading straight down to the dragon, with the prio gained by Sagewabe and Al Calamity, and mix that with the fact that Sochi just ultimated all the way up to the top side. They have free prio. Sagewabe taking a ton of damage.
I mean, Sagewabe just way too aggro there, trying to stay alive. Will actually manage to get away thanks to that big shield off of Alorum Stand United. It may have been a bait all along, as it's just Mixture who ends up falling, and it's the feat of warfare to gravity.
Incredibly well done. I wanted to look up before that top gank because you see Shen re-emerging into the meta. I knew that they were going to keep buffing it once the Riot patch note description said from the balance team, we like the game more when Shen is involved. So I was like, oh, they're going to keep buffing him. And now that he's fully back, been a little while, but Alorum's career record 11-7 with a 4.57 KDA, one of his highest win rate champions in his entire career. So certainly very well versed on what this champ is capable of. And you see what he's able to do into Gwen, which has been for this almost the entirety of this year, one of the strongest, most stomping top laners in the meta. And I understand that some nerfs have come through, but there's been a lot of, I believe it's been described as like inertia, where even though a champ is getting nerfed, players have been playing it so much and it's been so strong that they all just kind of feel like it is still strong no matter how many times it gets nerfed. So we're still trying to figure out where exactly Gwen fits right now in the meta, but it seems like Dorado still feel like in the hands of Ariana, worth being B1'd.
I completely agree. And on your point about Alorum's Shen win rate, I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually higher than that. Because tier 3 games, of which Alorum has played many, and I'm sure plenty on Shen, aren't recorded in those stats. And he's also had a couple of, you know, kind of stinker splits in tier 2, Mirage Alliance, cough, cough. So they're dragging down the stats that do get recorded, and there's probably some very good stats from him winning at the tier 3 level that aren't in there. So I bet it's even higher. But the fact that it's a positive win rate for him on GOL recorded games is also quite significant. Alorum looking good on the Shen so far, doing a pretty solid job.
Yeah, keep himself relevant in levels and in CS, as we see Kitsuo trying a sneaky little lane gank. I believe the minion's a bit too close for him to sneak his way into that bush, but we effectively flipped the map as grubs were secured by Dorado Gaming. So we have traded objectives. Feats of Warfare went over, as Alorum's going to have to be careful. No stacks for the snip, so no kill threat at the moment, but looks like he's going to opt to just take a back right now, spend some of that gold. Does get stopped.
Very nice from Ariana. Actually commits the needlework, thinks that he can get a solo kill, and Alorum respects that threat as he does flash out. Now going to try to stay here and catch this wave. Wanted to have the health, I believe, to catch the wave, is why he flashed away there. Let's see, they might be looking for a dive anyway. Kaido is en route, but so is Kitsuo.
Yeah, I think it was a good decision to use that flash, even if you might not have died if you had just tanked it and gotten under turret. He understands that not going to have it back up, but Shen is quite mobile on his own, as he's an assist use here.
Kitsuo caught in there, but going to have Alorum at his back. Flash over the wall. Matched. Kaido going to be taken down. Robbie Bob drops Tibbers, gets a big chunk in an AoE, but Ariana snips one back. Alorum will be able to make the trade complete. It is a 2-for-1 in favor of Gravity. They win out on the cross map yet again, or do they? Fodicon and Mixture lock Calamity down and blow him up.
This is one of the main benefits of the crit Kaisa build, is where most AD carries that build that Yuntals, you see it more as scaling, but because the typical builds on Kaisa lack a lot of early game damage, when you opt to go any BF sword route, you gain a ton of damage during the laning phase. And so able to grab that kill under turret, stacking up that plasma. And like I mentioned, with Nautilus beside you, you're able to stack the plasma up so quickly. And Lethal Tempo also giving the assist there. I want to turn attention real quick, as I've just noticed, on Sage Wabe. I really think Lethal Tempo is a very strong keystone for Ezreal, especially in lane. And when you have a Leona by your side, you're able to stack it up so quickly. But going for Conqueror, trying to make sure that throughout the course of the game, the damage will stay strong. About 400 gold down on Vatican, as gold for the rest of the map is quite even. Only other discrepancy is about a 300 advantage for Kitsuo in the jungle.
Yeah, ooh, nice hook on towards Robbie Bob, but perhaps at the wrong moment for Mixture, as there are just more numbers here for Gravity. He flashes back over the wall. It's like he will be able to get away here. Re-engage. Nice dodge from Fodicon to avoid the incoming solar flare. But it is a trade of ultimates there. Moving on up is Sage Wabe. And now the push going to continue from Dorado. They're going to be the ones with mid priority as this dragon spawns. Nice flick back on towards Kitsuo. And this pick should lock in the dragon. Mixture claims the kill credit, but that was all Shochi.
That's massive. You can see how antsy both teams were to try and find an advantage as that dragon spawned, and Kitsuo was the one who ended up making the critical mistake. Gets immediately engaged on Ariana. In a bit of a dangerous spot, just walks away, has the Rift Maker, so would have been able to heal up. And we are also, no one talked about the fact that Fodicon just flashed for nothing at the end of that fight. He's just showing off. He used the killer instinct to dodge something. Now he's just trying to make sure he's making everything look as impressive as possible. And I understand why Dorado Gaming was so antsy during that fight. Vi didn't have a full item. Ariana was half health. Talia has no completed items, and compare that to the Malignance, Sundered Sky, Titanic Hydra on the other side. Sheen for Ezreal might as well be a completed item for this champ, so they knew they needed a numbers advantage to make that dragon happen, and once they found it, easily took the dragon, making that even stacking as we are gifted yet another Infernal Rift.
I love that play from Shochi there. Very impressive stuff to be able to make that move on towards Kitsuo. And this is the level I want to see from this mid laner on Dorado, as Ariana getting ganked, getting knocked up. I don't think he's getting out of this one, even with the needlework. Oh, so much healing, though. One more snip, he might be able to do it. He stays standing, but Robbie's here to turn it into a 3-on-1. And Robbie will walk away with his first kill of the game.
And just to think, if they hadn't nerfed Gwen's snip, that would have been a kill. And who knows if he would have been able to get the second, maybe even the third. Thank God they nerfed this champion. I like having it in pro play because I just love the design, but I don't want it to be able to consistently win 1v2s when having a score line of 1 and 2, as invading in the jungle, Kitsuo is going to be in trouble.
Yeah, Kitsuo is certainly going to drop here. The question is, will they get Calamity as well? And with the flick back from Shochi, the answer is yes. Wise choice to not blow the flash from Calamity, but he will give over kill credit regardless. And Dorado make a pick onto 2 more.
I mean, you're starting to see the danger that Gravity are falling into as Shochi continues to get kill gold. This Talia, oftentimes in pro games, feels much more control and utility based, just trying to put down that unraveled earth, find those seismic shoves that he has shown so capable of doing throughout the game. But you get a lot of kill gold onto this champion. If he starts getting accelerated past the Seraph's Embrace, Talia can start doing a lot of damage. And when you put that on the opposite side of a fight where Vi, Gwen, Kaisa are all diving forward, and you get sandwiched in between those three and a Talia, it's going to be a very straightforward team fight for the side of Dorado. And based on this early game, I really thought Gravity was going to come out to an advantage. Kidswell getting caught once again.
Yeah, getting found. He was scouting out that Rift Herald, and that is going to be a pick. And this Rift Herald is also going to be full feats of warfare to Dorado. These matter more on the Ionia map than they did on the Noxus map because of how much they've buffed up those tier 3 boots. They're actually viable purchases now, and Dorado has been an excellent team at securing them throughout this entire run, and something that I think players undervalue, especially spectators undervalue, because we're so used to the whole year being like, feats don't really matter that much. Now they do, and Dorado's about to secure them.
Yep. And unfortunately for both teams, Shochi is caught out here. No mana, but does have a turret to retreat to. Unfortunately, no members of either team able to purchase reasonably those swiftness boots that now give you adaptive force based on move speed. People have been asking me why Jhin had seen a little bit of a bump in presence, and it's that indirect buff from swiftness boots. Same with Senna, giving you that adaptive force just from collecting those feats of warfare. Very strong, as we do have a quick pause, hopefully quick.
Yeah, hopefully quick. Something to call out here is Shochi is teleporting right into a one-on-one with a Robbie Bob, has stun up and Tibbers up, and might just one-shot him as soon as he arrives. I don't know if that's a mistake or not, but that I see this happening before my very eyes. Maybe I'm wrong on the Annie damage, but this is a rank 2 Tibbers with the Sork shoes with Malignance. This is that power spike you were talking about. Shochi doesn't even have the upgraded Archangels. He might just die here.
Yeah, maybe he's going to try and get as many spells off as possible to get to Seraph so he can get the shield. And just try and get there, but does have flash.
I don't think he's going to get to cast a spell. I think he's going to get Tibbers as soon as he gets there. I don't know. I might be overestimating how much stronger the Annie burst is. I will not discount that. And he does have Merc Treads. We'll see. I'm worried, though.
I am as well. Another thing I'm worried about is looking at the lineup. We know Gwen so good at shredding as we are out of the pause.
Okay, Robbie's not even going to try. So Robbie doesn't think it kills. He's probably right.
That's just the aura that Shochi brings to a game. And he does immediately get the Seraphs. He knew it. He knew he was going to get the shield. That's why he did it. But one of the other things I'm worried about is looking at Alorum, 2-1 and 4, has the Titanic, now going to start to build some of those tank items. And when you have, your generic tier 3 top laner on Shen, you aren't too worried. But when you've got a guy like Alorum who's played this champion for over a decade, has the Titanic Hydra, has a scary, unexpected amount of damage. Once some of these tank items come through, I really foresee Alorum making a lot of big plays and able to do decent damage to champs like Gwen, Vi, even Kai'Sa. If that killer instinct is misplaced, immediately getting taunted up, Alorum could become a huge problem as you see immediately chunking out Ariana.
Yeah, driver's license secured for Kaido there. He manages to navigate the Rift Herald all the way through the jungle and into that bot lane turret. So 2 outer turrets taken by the Herald. That's kind of a new unlocked feature of the buffed up Rift Herald on the Ionia patch as well. The fact that you get to still charge even if you don't reach all the way to the turret with your charge means that the threat of taking down multiple turrets is more alive than ever. And they do a great job of executing on it there for Dorado, picking themselves up 2 outer turrets for the price of 1. And now at a solid little 3k gold lead as Dragon number 3 spawns.
Yeah, this time Gravity do have a little bit more vision in that banana brush, and as soon as I say it, it is gone. They have the side brush, though. They do have access, and Nautilus could be easily flipped with the shove.
Back, finds some damage onto Kitsuo. TP being channeled. All Calamity already being focused. Going to get knocked back as he is bringing Alorum in off the stand. United wall into the backside. Shochi forcing the members of Gravity to advance forward in this fight as Fatakan is managing to space them out on the other side. All Calamity going to be the first one to get engaged on. He melts down to Shochi, and over the wall comes Kaido, looking to lock onto the back line. Gets onto Robbie Bob. Killer instinct in from Fatakan as both carries have to flash flash into the red buff, but as they are over the wall, the rest of their team is dropping down around them. Ariana over the wall to keep the fight advancing, and Gravity have been completely forced into the worst position possible.
Where are they going?
By Dorado, there's nowhere to go. There's only turrets. There's only enemy jungle. Immunity from Ariana on the stuns, and he is about to snip his way through the rest of Gravity. A triple kill to Ariana.
I don't know where they were. They just figured if we just keep running, maybe sometime we'll end up back at our fountain. But eventually, they do get one kill in return. But earlier, when I said that I expected to see a team fight with Talia on one side and the rest diving on the other, I didn't see it happening like that, where they just dive on to Kai'Sa, and now they kind of sandwich themselves. And you see these team fights happen a lot when teams aren't on the same page, where they don't know, should they turn and support around their Leona that's been caught out, or do they commit to the dive, try and take Fotacon out of the fight so that they can then have the turn be an advantageous number fight. But they just can't make that decision quick enough, and you see Alorum flashes forward trying to get Fotacon, the rest kind of turn around with the solar flare, seeing if they can find a pick, and you see where that sandwiched fight ends up. It ends up with them running all the way into the enemy team's base, trying to hope that they can somehow get out, and the only thing they end up getting for it is that one kill for Alorum, and now Alkalamity caught again.
Yeah, found at the red buff, and I do think Kitsuo is going to have to abandon him. Sage Wabe going to provide some artillery support, but the full 5-man squad at Dorado going to have no problem finishing off that support, and just like that, for 30 more seconds, it's 5v4 on the map, and Otacon is ripe for the taking.
Yeah, and this new Otacon, a much more enticing buff. The Ruinous got a little bit, you know, I think people were overhyping how good Ruinous was. Obviously, Voracious was so strong, they had to completely rework the objective. But now with this Thornbound, I feel like that on-kill AoE damage is not that broken to the point where it's like, we can't have it in the game. Obviously, getting all of those flowers, no longer having to stand around and collect them, makes the Otacon fights a lot more concise, where it's not like the team who kills it, it doesn't really matter. It's who gets the flowers that matters. But getting that extra XP as we look, level advantage for, I'm looking now, for everyone except for Ariana. Everyone except Ariana is a level up on their opponent. And that matters, especially when you look at these level 11s coming in for Vi, already getting towards your level 16 cease and desist, actually having a lot of damage at that point. And Kai'Sa, the more levels Kai'Sa gets with this AD build, you obviously, as you can see, don't have a ton of attack speed in the actual build itself. So able to get that attack speed upgrade a lot sooner when you get these advanced levels, as Mixture might have put himself in a bad spot.
Wow, or he found a triple knockup to get the fight started. Flick back from Shochi, and they're going to re-engage here, immuning their way through the CC with the cease and desist, beautifully executed by Kaido. And here's Ariana to finish off the rest of the fight. Sage Wabe is cut off by Shochi, and Fotacon looking to make it a quadra kill, but it will be snagged away by the mid laner. An ace for 2 to Dorado as they look to crack open the base.
Mixture did such a good job baiting. He even got me. I thought he was the one in danger. No, Gravity were the ones in danger. Fotacon flies in with that killer instinct and stays over that large wall, unable to take any damage himself, but putting so much out. And I had just mentioned that AoE on-kill buff from Otacon doing so much work in that team fight. Once Talia gets there, they just easily clean it up. And now when you look at the side of Gravity, you start wondering, where is the damage going to come from? The Xin Zhao falls off fast. Shen really is only going to be capable for so long, as his cooldowns are quite high. Annie is, you know, such short range, has to put herself in so much danger to do anything. And as I mentioned in draft Ezreal, it takes a lot of uptime for the maximum damage to come out of this kit. And I know we said this last game, they're 6k gold behind, but Baron spawning in 2 minutes. Robbie Bob caught.
Robbie Bob dead. And Dorado with that pick once again. I mean, that could be the game right there. I know it's a little anticlimactic, but they're going to get so much extra by having this extra person on the map now, having gotten to spend some of the money from that last fight. They're playing every lane right now. And they are entitled to do so, as there's just no potential threat from Gravity when Robbie Bob is down. Ariana going to be able to easily clean up this inner turret, get themselves a nice extra chunk of gold. Kitsuo is caught in rotation, and this lead is just never ending here. Over the wall, might be a little outnumbered. Kaido going to have to get back away. Shochi riding the wall now. Shochi might be a little bit caught, but they're just going to keep advancing forward. Fatakan, Killer Instinct into the back line, finds his way towards Sagewabe, and Kaido's happy to advance right through the turret to go and support him. It's a flash Tibbers from Robbie Bob to get back at Fatakan, and that's actually some low health bars here. Tibbers is going to try to do some work. They are able to melt down one. Robbie getting focused on the other side, flicks back in. Here's the stand united from Alorum, and this Annie damage is not to be underestimated.
Meanwhile,
Robbie Bob able to clean up a few members, but Ariana been working on the base the whole way through. Took down one of the Nexus turrets, going to try for a second one. Alorum onto Shochi. Shochi flashes out, manages to stay alive, but I don't think Ariana can take this fight anymore. It will be a kill, but it's a TP out from Shochi to at least prevent the ace.
And that is, as most of you have suspected in the Twitch chat, we did have a contract with Dorado. They have to provide content as well as try to win these games. So that was what we saw there. They just decide, you know, all of that, you know, hesitation and discipline they'd shown all game, they throw it out the window and they say, let's just dive their base. Everyone get in there, Killer Instinct, the Weaver's Wall, putting Shochi all alone. And now Gravity trying to take advantage of some of these desynced respawn times, but Fatakan just wants a kill.
Wow, all right, Fatakan. I mean, he's hit 3 items and he is ready to play. Robbie is already down. Sagewabe down below half. Shochi going to get right in here to keep it going. Kitsuo going to try to launch himself in Fatakan, but I don't think that's a fight you win. Fatakan takes down 3. Near single-handedly did get some backup from the team on the back 2. And I mean, Dorado now, there's only 2 enemies left on the map, but neither one deals particularly much damage. They're going to look for the full ace. Fatakan might just look to take the bot lane inhibitor.
Yeah, this Ariana's got Riftmaker, got that needlework. You are not killing this Gwen ever. I don't care how low health she has. And it looks like, despite a close back and forth game 1 and an early advantage for Gravity, looks like we are going to continue to follow Dorado Gaming throughout their open qualifier journey.
Well, they're having a little fun with it here. This game might go on a little longer. Fatakan just died to nothing for no reason. Robbie Bob actually might be able to finish off Shochi here as well. Ariana playing on a knife's edge will also fall, and Tibbers is still chasing Shochi, still burning him the whole way through. Misses a flick for the first time this game, but it doesn't matter. Shochi will take out Kitsuo. And this game goes on. 3 inhibs, both Nexus turrets down, but Gravity's still hanging on by a thread.
See, everyone, that's a lesson learned. That's why you don't let the newbie do the end of game calls. That's why Gordo's the professional here, because I curse it. So
I get it wrong all the time, don't worry.
We are going to continue with both objectives up and available. A lot more gold in the pockets of Gravity. Can they do it again? No one out on the map, no vision for either team on either objective. So, you know, if you really think about it, if you take out like the little marker app and cover up the gold advantage and the little bounty markers, this could be a completely even game with 2 very important objective fights coming up.
Yeah. So, I mean, Gravity, this is your moment. You do want to make something miraculous happen here. If you really want to enter the Open Qualifiers history books, this is your chance to do so at this Baron. They got a big Baron steal in game number 1. They'll certainly need to do it again in this game number 2 to try to stay alive. Baron down below 4K. Kitsuo on his way. He doesn't have flash, but he could do it with Wind Becomes Lightning. Nope. It's going to be the smite from Kaido. Kaido's right over. He's going to get started on towards Kitsuo. Knows he's isolated. Knows he's got Fatakan with the Killer Instinct. And 5v4 pushing into the base. Dorado could probably just ignore the champions and end the game right here.
They could, but will they? We don't know. One Nexus turret has respawned. Bit of a bug.
All right.
Going to go into an Alorum here.
Yeah, they
No
find the
turrets
hook,
now.
they find the double shuffle. There goes Annie, not going to be able to get many with that Tibbers. And just front to back, absolute demolition from Dorado. Sage Wabe, the last one to fall. And it will be a 2-0 for Dorado as they move on to face Cupid in round number 4.
Extremely well played, and one of the key intangibles that we saw in game 1 that carried over into game 2 was that resilience. This was not the best early game for Dorado. They were starting to fall a little bit far behind, and it looked like Gravity were going to have the tools to make this a 3-game series, as you see, around even gold at 15 minutes, but eventually, once Shochi got out onto the map, once Fotacon started getting those items, and once they started moving as a unit, what they are best at, it really just fell so far out of their hands. And this game, Shochi really put on an amazing performance against Robbie Bob. And, you know, when we talked about him, we talk about that champion Ocean. He can really play anything. I said at the beginning of the draft, I said, I'm sure that just because he's not playing the top tier meta stuff doesn't mean he can't play it. And he absolutely showed that, playing one of the most meta mid laners better than I've seen almost anyone else play it.
Yeah, I mean, huge Shochi game here. I think his best game of the OQ so far. I'm not counting that quirky game against Platinum players. And shout out to All Calamity coming in from the raid. Great game from the Gravity side, but it will be a win for Dorado. Always happy to have those who were tuned in for Gravity joining up with us, though. See how the series against Cupid is going to go, because that series is for some high stakes here, Jack. The winner of Cupid versus Dorado, which will be starting in just a few minutes, as it is a rolling start, and Cupid have known that they were moving into this for a long time. Winner of this is going to be in a promotion series match against either Galaxy or Jolly Rogers. So very big stakes here to potentially be able to make your way into the promotion tournament.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to mention, as we are going to obviously be continuing to follow Dorado Gaming, is Gravity's journey in this OQ is not over yet. They now enter the lower bracket as one of the top teams down there. And as you mentioned, they win 1 or 2 series, and they're right back into a promotion match. We could be seeing this very same matchup once again for a shot at the NACL. And this Gravity roster is very, very talented. They have a very competitive core and certainly have what it takes to make it. But today in this matchup, Fotacon, Shochi, that combo in both these games, and also Ariana playing that Gwen still looks very strong in their hands. And I still think if I had to give an MVP for this, I would give it to the often overlooked support role. I think Mixture did such a good job getting Fotacon so many opportunities. That top lane kill under tower stands out in my mind. And obviously that huge bait towards the end of the game to really find them their first clean ace of the game. I really think Mixture showing that, you know, when you compare Fotacon's previous lane partners like Asper, really he stands out as one of those better support prospects.
Completely agree here. And, you know, just to keep the Shochi praise going, man, this is some of the best form I've seen Shochi in a while. I am very excited for what he's going to be able to continue to show us. Big matchup coming up against the likes of Cupid here. So we will keep our eyes on how they're going to be able to perform. That roster and their mid laner, Leica Moz, was in position to promote last open qualifier. We'll see if he's going to be able to do it this time. And it's going to be another showdown between some of the top support prospects in the region. If you remember, Jack called out at the beginning of the stream, it's Mixture, it's All Calamity, and it's Pika Pika. Pika Pika going to be the support on Cupid, who we will see Mixture face off against next. So running the full gauntlet of his peers today. We're going to throw it to a quick break, but we will be back before too long as Cupid versus Dorado kicks off next. Welcome back, everybody, to today's broadcast of the NACL Open Qualifiers here on Aegis, where Dorado have successfully moved up to the 3-0 bracket, 6-0 in game score over the weekend, and they now play Cupid Esports for a shot at the qualification match, Jack. Let's introduce the new opponents: Cupid Esports, Barrick, Maddie, Lycamaz, Nightstar, and Pika Pika.
Yeah, Pika Pika, we've already spoken about not only after last game, but before we even went live, talking about how much of a touted prospect they are. But a majority of this roster, if you are familiar with these OQs, as I assume most of our viewers are, was one game away from being in the NACL at the end of the last qualifier. Barrick has already spent a little bit of time in the NACL on that AOE roster. So while they might not be as crazy recognizable names to a more casual tier 2 viewer, these are guys who they've trudged through this tournament before, and I think this is one of those scenarios where I talk a lot about momentum in these tournaments and how I think that favors teams like Dorado, who have gone on the 6-0 streak. But for a team like Cupid that have been here, they're able to just kind of sit back, watch, see what kind of games Dorado are playing, and they already are taking notes. As Kindred is banned, they do not want to deal with that.
I love the Maddie focus here, though, from Dorado. Hopefully we can get, I think CES is the Cupid Esports abbreviation, tri-code, whatever you call it. Hopefully we can get that up here. But a lot of Maddie focus from Dorado here, taking off his Sejuani, his Vi, and his Nunu. So, like you said, Lycamaz, Barrick, and Nightstar were all in the qualification tournament. We're in a qualification match in the last OQ. They were one game away from moving on to NACL instead of Apex, but they did lose in that Game 5 scenario. So if it had been a best of 3, which it was in the lower bracket, they would have qualified, which is pretty crazy to think about, but didn't quite make it. Now they come back with a little bit of a retooled roster. They bring in Pika Pika at support, who's, like we've brought up before, one of those really hyped support prospects here in this region. And they bring in Maddie in the jungle. And Maddie for King Clueless, I think you can certainly find some debate there about who is the better jungle. Maddie certainly with more reps at this level. But I personally, I think I've seen some real high highs out of King Clueless as of late. So unfortunately, FF'd out of this OQ, so we won't get to see the two face each other. We almost did in the previous round. But Cupid now going to be coming in with their retooled roster to see if they're going to be able to take Lycamaz, Barrick, and Nightstar to that last step. As wow, that is a Yasuo lock-in, and there is the Maokai likely for all Calamity. I think that the big takeaway here is I think Yasuo is Shochi's go-to pick in a way on this patch, because he's done it twice in bracket now.
Now, I've heard this somewhere, and I honestly think it might have been when I watched back yesterday's broadcast talking about mid laners that don't have a lot of projectile ultimates. And Hui,
yeah.
That was you. Some wise man once said. But this early prio on Jin Hui, I always get so nervous, because what if the other team picks a tank? What if they pick 2 tanks? Now Jin's useless. What if they pick any champion that can stop projectiles or just tank them up? Now Hui's useless. So there's going to have to be incredible execution. I think a step in that direction is the Lilia. This champ can be so disruptive. It can be so difficult to team fight around, do we fight front to back, or do we have to stop and target this deer that is just sprinting around our entire team, waving her wand at us till we die? So knowing that Maokai is most likely going to be flexed around makes it so probably won't be as tanky if it is put down towards support for Mixture. If it's put in the jungle for Kaido, I don't typically, from what I've researched, see Kaido as a tank player. So bit of a question there. I actually think this would have been somewhat of a Diana Yasuo angle if that's something that's in Kaido's pocket. But as we look at the bans, pinching engage supports, and that Renekton top lane, I do want to quickly say, as the Nautilus has swapped up that last engage support available, the Varus prio still being high. This champion hasn't received any nerfs or buffs, while it has been the highest prio champ in professional play. But so far this patch, and this could obviously just be coincidence, as now we've got Hook champ v Hook champ, Varus is sitting at 1-7 in tier 1 and 2 comp league. So maybe that's just saying we found some more, on 15-10. So maybe there's just been some more pieces found. Maybe the new mages coming in have been better at stopping Varus, but looking at what they have, I think Poke Varus is going to have a very fine time in this game at preventing what Cupid wants to do as Ambessa. We've
There
been
it
asking
is.
for it. There it is. Ambessa for Ariana.
About time. Ariana, I think his best champion right now. Ilaoi is the response from Barrick. So, I mean, this is a top lane juggernaut showdown, not just in champions, but in players. I think Barrick is an incredibly talented top laner, kind of gone underrated for, I think, a very long time. Okay, it's not real. Okay. Yes, I'm getting pinged to say stop talking about it. As there is going to be... Nah. Okay, never mind. They're not tagging me to say that the Ilaoi is wrong.
It was hovered.
Okay. There we go.
Aww.
There is the Jace. All right, so it is going to be Jace instead of Ilaoi. That bums me out a little bit, but still, Barrick versus Ariana going to be a hell of a showdown.
I will say, as much as I just kind of memed there with my disappointment, I love seeing teams in Tier 3 be able to pilot these very strong champions, because I think practice here will help them going forward. If they make it to these promotion matches, to NACL, having the ability to first pick a Jace, have it be flexible, that gives you so much power in draft on blue side. And so getting reps now into a very common matchup like Ambessa, you're going to be seeing that a ton of times throughout your journey in competitive play. The Ambessa just slam locked in is a good thing to have. Now, back over to Dorado, I'm seeing a lot of very strong champions, but they're not really shaking hands as well with one another. Now, Blitzcrank Maokai is an incredible combo because Nature's Grass goes out. Anyone who gets hit by it, Blitz just grabs and pulls him in. And Bessa kind of wants to just roll through the team, but Yasuo is kind of left out on his own here. You know, gonna have to find his own knockups to create those last breath opportunities. And from what I've seen so from Shoshi, I have pretty good faith he'll be able to do so.
Yeah, and I think being able to have Kaido with the Bramble Smash to be able to set up those knockups to get the Yasuo ultimate on a cross, that's going to be a nice, reliable way to get good Yasuo engages off, possibly on multiple members, or sometimes it's just about getting that one knockup, you know, and letting the Yasuo get the engage at that really extra range. So going to be very powerful for them. It is, of course, mixture on the Blitzcrank here for Dorado. So that's an exciting pick. This is a pocket pick that he's shown us before. So going to be a pretty exciting one. And I do want to highlight the Maddie Lilia as well. As you correctly called out at the start of us introducing Cupid, Maddie, you know, it's kind of like the Alorum Urgot, right? Generally a little bit more of a tank player, a little bit more of a weak side player, a little bit more of an enabler. I think that applies to both of those players, but they do have their preferred pocket carry picks. For Alorum, it's the Urgot. For Maddie, it's the Lilia. Maddie has always been a Lilia enjoyer, even when it hasn't been a very big part of the meta. So the fact that it is a strong pick in the current patch, I think is going to be plenty happy for him. And when he gets 3 bans directed at him and still gets to snap up the Lilia, that's got to feel good.
Yeah, the E damage was buffed some time ago and brought Lilia up to the forefront of this jungle meta, obviously receiving some minor nerfs with the Liandry's Torment losing some ability power, but I think it does open up some more build paths, because you can now more reliably go an item like Bloodletter's Curse because you're getting more MR Shred, more health, more AP, and even something like Crypto Bloom gives you a lot more penetration percent-wise because you have so much penetration built into the kit. But if you look at the core of Lilia shifting from Liandry's into Bloodletters into Riftmaker, maybe Azanya's after, you know, with these new mage item reworks, gives a lot more angles, whereas on the flip side, Maokai became very popular because of Liandry's Torment dealing so much damage and allowing Maokai to kind of be this like AP burst mage for a short period of time before building those tank items. And I'm interested to see how how relevant that build is, especially coming from a player like Kaido, who's not really known for these tank junglers.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, he has been around a lot of the time, or a long time in OQs here, Kaido, under the name City Witty. he's definitely gotten a fair bit of reps on those tank junglers. Like you said, I think he's more of a carry guy at heart. I think especially under the Kaido brand, he's certainly better known as being the Kha'Zix guy. He showed off on the Kindred earlier today. He showed off on that Kha'Zix yesterday. But I think he's fully capable of being able to execute on especially a tank that's been so in the meta over the last couple of years in the Maokai. I'm not too concerned about that one. I am concerned, though, about Maddie just running circles around him with how fast this Lilia can clear and how comfortable Maddie is on a pick like this. It's certainly going to be an interesting one. And even though it's not the Alawi, this top lane is going to definitely be super, super volatile. And it's between two incredibly strong carry-focused top laners. I think this is a battle to keep a close eye on for a lot of this early game.
Yeah, and these team fights are going to be hard to execute for Dorado. As I mentioned, you're either going to have to find a way to go forward and directly attack the poke that Jace, Hui, Jin can bring down with Lilia and Nautilus trying to keep them safe, or you commit your time to stopping Lilia from stacking up and running through your team. Now, obviously, they do have the lockdown CC that Maokai provides, but I feel like I keep bringing this up with Kaido. Having, we've talked about, Kaido now has had a couple different names throughout his career, but it's almost, for those of you who've seen Thunderbolts, it's like Sentry and Void. Sentry is the Maokai, Sejuani, these tank facilitators, and then Void comes out and he's locking in Kha'Zix, Rengar. He just wants to go in there. He's bloodthirsty. But now he's allowing Shochi to do some more of that big damage. Ariana on the Mbessa blind pick, so reliable as we've talked about, and Vodacon has been put on some champs that have a lot of self-reliance. They have a lot of agency themselves, but this game, going for that Varus, we'll be able to see very quickly what type of Varus we're going to see. And I think when you have Blitzcrank, you have so much lockdown with the hook and knock-up combo that we could even see a Hail of Blades lethality Varus here, because you've got no mobility on Jin, you've got no mobility on Hui, on Nautilus, unless he hits a hook into a wall, Jace. So that Hail of Blades is going to find a lot of value throughout the game, whereas Comet, there's so much range on the side of Cupid Esports. The reliability you'll have being able to hit those max range arrows, they're going to be able to stay so far away. We're going to have to see which one Vodacon values more.
We will. And I mean, this is a kind of matchup. You look at the kind of bottom triangle, or specifically the mid and bot lanes together for Shochi Vodacon mixture facing off against Lycabaw's Nightstar Pika Pika. It feels like on paper this would be really, really favored towards Dorado, but Lycabaw's and Nightstar have been able to put together such good performances over the last couple of OQs, whether that be on Reluminate last year and then coming in on towards that Dog Fans roster last split, that it feels like we have to start bumping them up in our rankings, right? It's gotten so chaotic with the format changes and the big 64-team double elim bracket that it's hard to give OQ performances the kind of weight that we used to. But at a certain point, you just have to point out, hey, these guys are winning everything. They may be some of the top talents in Tier 3, and they should be respected as such until we give reason to not believe it. So I'm very curious to see how these guys are going to be able to prove themselves up against the likes of Shochi and Vodacon, players who have previously been at the Tier 2 level in other years past, and who are fighting to get back there now and are considered favorites to do so.
Yeah, it's a great point you bring up about the OQ. Those first two rounds in a 64-team matchup, unless you're one of those teams right in the very middle, those early rounds don't really reflect much of your actual skill level. But the really important thing for a viewer like myself that has only really been keyed in on Tier 3 this year, like we mentioned before, one game away from being in the NACL this spring. So the core of this roster, more than capable of taking any team down.
Certainly are here. That is Pika Pika on the Nautilus. He is rocking the characters that I'm not familiar with. I believe that's Mandarin, but I was
like, is he going to risk taking a guess at it?
I'll take a shot. I think it's likely. It's likely that, but just knowing that, Pika Pika, I do believe is going to be pulled on in. Nightstar nearly the victim of an early game play, but it looks like nobody else wants to dedicate some of those additional resources here to try to make the level 1 kill happen.
Yeah, that's pure you know, Mixture is on a 2-game win streak today. He's been popping off. I gave him MVP of the split, or of the series last game, but we're seeing more fighting.
Ooh, dashing forward, Shochi trying to get onto Nightstar. And Nightstar is just having a rough go of it here at level 1. He's just going to take the recall here. We'll be a little bit late to this wave. Let's see if that ends up mattering.
I mean, like, Mixture's feeling himself. He's just running around, pulling anyone in. As that, I believe that's that Victoria skin, so that might be that Summoner's Cup for a hand. Just trying to grab anyone, bring them into the blender, and Vodacon happy to oblige with the damage. Going that Comet route, so opting for that guaranteed damage when you hit those hooks. As Pika having to go in. Spider-Man's his way out of there, but he's going to take another arrow. So now we might see him have to back, and these desynced backs in this bottom lane could prove very dangerous for the bot side of Cupid.
Yeah, I mean, Pika's just got to chug those potions now and tough it out with Nightstar. I think really rough to try to get up there and be in XP range here at level 1. Kind of costs this bot lane big time. They're going to get fully zoned off here. They're still stuck at level 1. It's a flash in from Mixture, getting the knock-up onto Pika, and first blood to Fodicon.
Fodicon's warmed up. He's like, I've been playing for 2.5 hours right now, stomping everyone in my way. I'm just going to rock forward and grab myself a kill, thanks to Mixture mixing
Oh
it
my
up.
god!
One.
Mixture just can't miss these. He connects another one. No flash, no barrier used from Nightstar. Knows that he's safe to stay alive, but oh my goodness, Mixture. He is just popping off on the Blitzcrank.
And with that unsealed spellbook, once again, is going to be able to just rotate through cooldowns and just keep grabbing these aggressive summoner spells. I did want to take one moment to point out Pika grabbing that exhaust is a summoner spell that, ironically, I feel supports have not been going as often, but when you're facing a Yasuo and a Bessa, having that exhaust really nullifies everything these champs want to do. As you spoke about it earlier, hasn't gotten the full clear, but coming down for a gank.
Yeah, Maddie making his appearance here. It is Kaido on the approach. Nightstar going to be able to take down Mixture, though. Kind of punishing Fodicon and Mixture for getting a little big for their britches. This did happen to them yesterday, too. When they start hard winning the 2-on-2, they can put themselves in over-aggressive positions and start to give a little bit of that lead back. I think we see a small inkling of that here from Dorado.
I want to go back to something I talked about pretty frequently during this draft, talking about Kaido on this Maokai. First strike, Maokai, as Yone going in, trying to get that, or Yasuo, getting them mixed up, the brothers, trying to get that shield back up, but first strike for Maokai as...
Wow. What execution there from both Mixture and Shochi. Perfectly timing the CC, picking up that knock-up into the hook, and Mixture makes another play on the map. Shochi doing his fair share to be able to make sure that that works out as well, perfectly knowing those ranges. Dorado looking very strong in the early game. Mixture's not stopping there, by the way. He wants to make his presence known in every lane. Coming over the wall. Hello, Barrick. Let's see if you can escape from this one. Locked down. Calling over Maddie for the backup. Maddie might be able to finish off Mixture here. Certainly will. It will be a 1-for-1. And now can they get Ariana out of here safely? I do believe the answer should be yes.
They can follow here. Hook available and exhaust. They could turn on to Maokai.
Yeah, Kaido might have stepped up a little too far here. Gets the double knockback. Ariana now caught out. Ariana's gonna fall. Another swirl seed hits the passive. It's ticking down. Maddie finishes off a 4th kill this game, and Maddie with 100% KP pulls Cupid into the lead.
And as the kill comes through, he yells down and says, wish you would have had phase rushed now. First strike gold. Going to help him get that extra ruby crystal potentially, but not having that phase rush, not having after charge, after strike. Jeez. Too many keystone. Aftershock, thank you. I'm falling apart over here. There's just so much action to talk about early, and Mixture putting me in a blender now, just everywhere. Now that he's back bottom lane, they have this huge wave piling up. I don't really know how much dive potential they have, but it isn't really a dive when Mixture pulls you out of turret range and Varus just blows you up.
Yeah, I mean that's tough for them. It's a lead for Fotacon for sure. It's funny that Mixture has gotten all over the map. He's gotten kills in every lane, and at the end of the day, Cupid is ahead by a couple hundred gold. So hasn't actually manifested a global advantage, but I think it is worth calling out that a lot of that gold's concentrated onto Maddie, where if Dorado had been able to build up individual leads, another clutch hook onto Nightstar, and another one that Maddie might be able to just turn around, but the Ignite will burn down Nightstar. Kill credit over to Mixture, and this guy just can't miss.
He perfectly threads the needle. Hex flashes in between the melee and ranged creeps to find the angle. And I mean, if I'm Nightstar, you're getting so frustrated because what are you supposed to do? Do you just sack the lane and say, I just can't walk up and just give them complete control? You can't really afford to do that in a setting like this. This isn't some solo queue game where you say, well, I'm the better player, I'll just wait and scale up. You know, this is like you said, you're one series away from being in a promotion match. So you have to continue to find ways to stay aggressive as we see public execution is whiffed. And here comes Mixture once again.
Yeah, getting the knockback. There's the pull. There is another kill for Shochi. Lycamaz with nowhere to go. And I mean, these immobile carries, this one doesn't even give credit over to Mixture. That was just Shochi hitting a tornado. But these immobile carries facing down the threat of the Yasuo, of the Blitzcrank, of the Ambessa, and of the Maokai and the Varus coming in with their respective root ultimates. It's just so hard to stay alive as Cupid.
And I mean, all of their champions, as you pointed out, with that lack of mobility, it's not even like one player can just build them a Kales and then they have their answer, because you have to dodge all of Maokai's point-and-click CC, Ambessa's public execution, which is great follow-up from that Nature's Grasp. Same with Blitzcrank. And even, let's say that you don't hit some of that stuff, but Blitzcrank is able to get close enough. Once he silences your whole team, any tools you do have are now gone for a few moments, and that could be just enough time for Shochi to find a knock-up angle, a corrupting chains to land, which we haven't even mentioned yet on the long line of CC abilities for the side of Dorado, as we have a quick pause so Nightstar can rejoin. Certainly just some computer issues and not just frustration from Mixture just being all up in his face.
It could be a mix of both. It's been a tough game for Nightstar so far. He's done admirably, though. I mean, he's 1-1. He got the kill off of the gank from Maddie earlier. He's kept himself fairly even in farm. I mean, he's down about a wave and a half here, so it's not perfect by any means, but given that he's been under so much pressure, that he was forced off from level 1, that he got killed, that he got engaged on once again and was forced out just a few moments ago, it's pretty good for him to only be down a faint amount. Still, though, game finds itself in a relatively even state here, despite all of the fancy plays we've seen from Mixture so far. The fact that Maddie's been able to respond and has been all over the map as necessary has really done a lot to keep Cupid in this game.
Yeah, and it's not like they have no scaling. You know, Lilia will continue to get strong as long as Nightstar doesn't build one of those freaky Jhin builds where you've just building like Yumu's rapid fire cannon, you have no damage unless you're hitting your 4th shot. As long as he goes like Collector and some normal build, Jhin will continue to scale, as still trying to reconnect to this game, as we see here. Got back in for a moment, now back out. But back to the scaling question, you know, Jace, once you get some items on Jace, can put out a lot of damage while still being relatively bruiser-esque way. Not really sure what build we're going to see after these mage item reworks, but I think if Hui opts for that artillery focus, Horizon focus, pun intended, did get a pretty nice damage buff. Luden's Companion getting cheaper now. Rabadon's getting cheaper, Seraph's getting cheaper, although it looks like we're not seeing a tier. Storm Surge as well. You know, there's lots of options for Hui to go as we are back into a pause with a third disconnect from Nightstar.
Yeah, it does look like he's having some difficulties here, so hopefully going to be able to get him back into this game before too long. Be able to continue what has been a pretty close game number 1 so far. It's been bloody, 9 kills in 8 minutes, but gold very, very close here. And, you know, we say that Maddie has all the gold. That could be a little bit of a vulnerability, whereas Dorado have gotten to get their lanes ahead, but it's still a very powerful champion to have a lot of gold on, especially if you're able to find some of those big engages, if you're able to put a lot to sleep, if you're able to get the bow onto a number of players, if you're able to land the Eep on an isolated target, you really can blow people up on this Lilia with an advantage. So especially going to be threatening towards the Maokai if you're going to be able to start crossing over and farming both jungles. Of course, going to have to create some scenarios where that works, as most of the lanes are losing at this stage, so really need to be able to get in there and defend them.
Yeah, and this is a game where, as we spoke about last series, feats of warfare, or feats of strength rather, are going to be very important. With the Jhin in the game, once you get those swiftness boots, you will get that adaptive force based on move speed. Obviously, Jhin has so many move speed buffs, not only built into the kit, but also taking that keystone of fleet footwork, going to consistently be able to grab a little bit of extra AD here and there. I think that is also one of the things that is enticing people to build that Yumu's, but I don't know about you, I just feel like those Yumu's rapid fire cannon, it takes so long for him to get online, and Jhin just feels super lacking, even against some squishier team comps.
Yeah, definitely does here. So there's going to be still a pause as we figure everything out for old Nightstar here. Hopefully game will be able to get kicked off for too long. Does look like he's still experiencing some of those connection issues, and yeah, we will have to cut away here, make sure for competitive integrity's sake that nobody's able to tune in here and see where everything is during the pause. And it's been a really close early game that I hope we get to see continue before too long. Been clearly a rough situation for Nightstar, who's going to try to get his way back in. But I want to see what else this mixture Blitzcrank can do. He's found some clutch hooks in the laning phase, but kind of a different beast when you get into the later game if you're going to be able to have the vision control and the knowledge of where folks are likely to be able to make the most out of this pick. Because it's not really one of those huge shielding teams or anything where you can get extra value out of static field or something like that. Tom Kench in particular, a champion that Blitzcrank really hoses in that department, but not this time. It's really going to come down to those hooks.
Yeah, and he's trying to make that advantage happen now. He's already got his warding quest complete, has those swiftness boots as the first buy, grabbed a ruby crystal for some extra survivability, but wants to continue to try and make plays across the map, get the rest of his team ahead. And, you know, one of the things we haven't really talked about, Chochi 2-0 right now on the Yasuo, so already doing so much damage on that Blade of the Ruined King spike, but once you start to get some crit onto this Yasuo, that's when you really start opening up the ability for that champ to really go on its own in these team fights and just start dashing through everyone and finding ways to make their own plays while the rest of the team has so much setup with Maokai and Bessa.
Yeah, looking to see if we've got any news in chat about when we'll be able to resume play here. And yeah, it doesn't look like we got any news. We're going to throw it to a quick break here then, and we will be back as soon as we can, as soon as these pause issues are resolved, and we will continue game number 1. We're back on to Summoner's Rift for game number 1 between Dorado and Cupid. Thank you, everybody who is stuck with us while we get everything back and running. Looks like we have been able to resolve the issues. And we are getting back into the game. Very, very close still. Just about 500 gold separating these teams. As Shochi is behind Leica Moz and calling over Ariana. I think this is a mistake that will be punished. He's got no flash. He's going to go down.
Yeah, just, I mean, I'm sure that Leica Moz did not expect Mbessa to be there at that moment. Otherwise, that risky path would not have been taken. But you're seeing how well Yasuo fares into these mage matchups. A lot of people think that the mage obviously having the massive range advantage, you're going to be able to take down the Yasuo, but just if you're ever near minions just so quickly, Shochi can use this champ to just jump right onto your head, put out so much damage without any real items built yet. There's a reason why so many people are so frustrated by this champion despite its relatively even power level. We are seeing, as we mentioned as well, going towards that Liandry's Torment is Kaido, and with that first strike in that inspiration tree, getting some of those extra potions throughout the course of this game, but being easily matched by the side of Maddie and the Lilia, already having that Liandry's Torment down now. I'm excited to see how the build path shakes out. As you mentioned, Maddie has many pro games played on this Lilia, one of the specialty picks, so definitely going to trust a player like them to figure out the best item path with an update coming through. As pulled in.
Now going to be an immediate burst out onto Maddie, who is so far ahead in the game already. That is a huge loss for Cupid, and will put Dorado into the lead. Oh, that was public execution, missing onto Barrick. Ariana going to be without that tool for a little while.
Yep, trying to continue to find looks. That's about the second or third public execution that they've missed so far, but continuing to look for angles. They've got a ton of swords in their pocket, a pickaxe, just want to do nothing but fight and swing, and Bess is a great champ to do that on. As oof, I saw 1 HP on an objective again. I got flashbacks, but Kaido secures that dragon, starting that stacking. They also have the Void Grubs. Shochi caught down here.
Nowhere to go, going to be put to sleep by Maddie, and this should be an easy cleanup for them. Shutdown gold handed over to Maddie's Lilia, and Shochi will be back in the death screen. Ariana flashing forward, looking for a solo kill, but doesn't have the energy. Barrick will get out of there. A hook connects to the bottom lane. Everything on a Nightstar now. Big charged Q from Fotacon, still not enough. He evades the hail of arrows, and Nightstar survives.
He stepped forward to evade the E so it didn't hit him. He saved the barrier for so long. Yeah, I can tell you right now, this guy's internet's back up and running as the Spider-Man combo saves Pika Pika. I think I've only seen Mixture miss one hook, and it was the second invade in the bottom jungle as the spear will not connect. Nightstar just fearing for their lives in the corner. Shochi's caught out again.
Yeah, no lilting lullaby this time, so he may just lose half his HP, although Maddie is so fast. Dashes through to avoid the eat, but will go down anyway to the Dream Dust. Looks like Pika Pika got caught again on the bottom side. I assume that was another hook from Mixture, and it will be another kill to the Dorado bot lane. 3-0-1 for this Lethality Varus for Fotacon. That will be a big power point for Dorado to play through.
Yeah, you were mentioning during the pause, how is Mixture going to stay relevant? And his answer is, I am going to become the fastest robot the world has ever seen. Building towards that Trailblazer, has the Swifty boots. Wouldn't be surprised to see a Shirelia's battle song come through either. Just wants to be able to find any angle. And move speed, one of the most underrated stats in the game. If this Blitzcrank's able to consistently just charge you down out of Fog of War, or even just when you see him in a lane and he just is so fast you can't stop him from finding an angle, going to be difficult. Shochi getting forward, proccing that lethal tempo, getting a ton of damage down onto Nightstar, who just has not been having the most fun game I could imagine. Like a Moz walking down to try and match, but only able to do so much damage.
Good damage onto Shochi there, and Pika Pika is here. He's going to be able to Spider-Man his way pretty close to Shochi, and he has the depth charge. I think this is going to be a kill. Shochi getting knocked up. Here is the hook, and like a Moz will claim another kill. Shochi 3 deaths in a row after a 2-0 start. Going to bring Cupid pretty close to parity.
And Mixture looking for Corrupting Chains do hit. And again, the movement speed allows him to get into a position that Nightstar cannot dodge continuously. Mixture just finding ways all around the map. And unfortunately, with that bottom death for Shochi, that does destroy his 100% kill participation.
That's true. That is certainly true. So
Not worth.
Maddie, not going to have it anymore. But, oh my, another flash there from Mixture. They will be trading it with Maddie's. Quick hands from Maddie going to keep him alive there on the Lilia, and crucially so, as he is so much of the Cupid Esports gold. This game is getting chaotic here, Jack. We've seen all of these players just constantly looking for picks, constantly finding kills. It's 9-7 now at 14 minutes.
Yeah, and obviously this is speculation. I have no idea what the comms are like, but I think it might be starting to get to a point where the teams are starting to say we got to maybe calm down a little bit, because Mbessa can really win that matchup right now against the Jace only on the Yumus, whereas Mbessa has the full Eclipse. And with both members up in the top side, was very hesitant, as now Shochi caught again and just killed, over aggressive. I mean, I think they've got to start to recognize that they need to take their foot off the gas just a little bit. The scaling is in their favor when you look at Maokai going to begin, well, actually seeing that Fiendish Codex maybe not going for a tank mill. Maybe that's the reason Kaido is playing this champ. He wants to play full AP Maokai.
Yeah, I think Shochi made a gamble there that he and Lycamaz were going to be in a one-on-one, and that Cupid would be spending resources top lane to get this spawning Rift Herald. Guess is wrong, though, and that may very well cost them on both sides. Barrick getting collapsed on, though. Dorado now the only one sending folks top side, so they should be able to make this pick happen. They do, and they should be rewarded with both first turret and a Rift Herald, unless that first turret drops bot first.
Yeah, and first turret so important towards getting those feats of strength, which they do secure there. That means no empowered swiftness boots for Jhin. Does take a little bit of power out of that champion. Now just kind of back to the basically strong is a huge hook.
Another hook, another knockup, nearly another kill, but Lycamaz survives with a sliver. But now Maddie making a play in towards mid. Shochi needs to stem the bleeding here at some point, will be able to do so, and it is Kaido working on that Herald. So Dorado still going to get their completed cash out from that play made onto Barrick earlier on. A really, really effective play, pays off dividends there as they do claim the tower and the Herald for it. Now going to get their reset off, and they don't even lose the bot lane turret. So wow, I mean, just so much gained off of picking Barrick.
Yeah, grabbing that bot wave with the teleport does Ariana. And as we take a look at some of the items completed, Hui going for that Blackfire Torch, wanting that AP percentage buff. Obviously with Hui, so much AoE abilities, so easy to stack that up on everyone, especially while using the ultimate. Jhin going for that static shiv. I've seen this a lot, not only just on the Mosquito build, as pull for pull keeps Pika Pika alive, but back to the Jhin build. We used to see this with the Mosquito build with static shiv into rapid fire cannon, and would get that big damage as Shochi trying to turn this 1v1 around.
Yeah, really nicely done by Shochi here so far. Haven't been able to get that. Oh, just barely shorting the tornado. But did get the last breath, did force Lycamaz out of lane, and will be pulling folks up to try to stop him here. Maddie going to show soon. Dorado have so many resources bot that they're going to look to make a play as soon as they see exactly what they're dealing with on the opposite side. Shochi does get hit by the full combo out of Lycamaz, though sniped down. A solo kill to Lycamaz, but now a full go button sent into the mid lane as they know where Maddie's at and they know they can make a play on the tower. Although Maddie lands a long-distance swirl seed, puts Mixture to sleep. Fodicon tries to defend his support, but he just throws his own life away as well. Shutdown gold over to Maddie. A double kill in mid for Cupid, and they take control.
Yeah, I mean, it's really what we're seeing right now is the difference between just raw player execution and coordination. I know that top dive onto Barrick was very successful, but you're seeing how often Pika Pika and Maddie are combined on these roams where they're able to get the lockdown long enough to make sure Lilia can do the full damage. How many times Pika Pika has come to these mid lane 1v1s and flipped the matchup into Like a Ma's favor. Shochi losing so much of that advantage that was gained early, although is playing Yasuo, so there is a correlation between deaths and win rate. So maybe looking for that 10 death power spike as Maddie just ripping through those jungle camps, sees Mixture, gets on the other side of the Raptor knowing that he could get pulled and killed right away. But going towards that Zhonya's, I think that is a good decision, knowing just how quickly Dorado Gaming can blow you up, knowing that he is a majority of not only the gold, but the damage. So having to go towards that Zhonya's to keep himself alive. I still would really like to see that Bloodletter's Curse come in, though, to buff up Hui even more.
Yeah, I do like the Shroud coming in here from Fodicon, though, to give you that spell shield. Will make it a lot less effective from Pika Pika to collapse on him. And speaking of collapses and Pika Pika, I do think Mixture's got him here. Has Kaido there for the backup. There's going to be the perfect execution, or the public execution, rather, coming in from Ariana. Be able to make that pick onto Pika Pika and getting numbers advantage for Dorado on the map.
Yeah, you're really seeing, as you mentioned with that build path, one of the best reasons that Varus has become the highest presence champion in professional play. It's just the versatility. If you're going for lethality, you have two extremely viable keystone options. You have so many different build paths. As the curtain's called, Barracks pulled in and immediately exploded.
Great pick there with that Chains of Corruption out of Fodicon. And they just have so much pick power with this team composition. Ariana gets a guaranteed public execution, and they are able to easily finish him off from there. And this should be Otacon as well, having two members off the map. Pika Pika is back with the team now. Might be a little bit late, but the Otacon taking a while to do. It is at 5k HP. They're sending Nightstar to clear the wave, so they don't seem to think they will be able to contest it. And it will be a complete Otacon for Dorado. They get the bonus experience, and they get that Thornbound buff.
Yeah, looking across, doesn't look like we'll see level advantages anywhere except for bot, and massive advantages in the top side. 2 levels up is Ariana to Barrack as Dragon spawns. Dorado do find themselves in a bit of an odd tempo spot, all of them backed off of the Otacon take, so that gives Cupid Esports a free Dragon, and Cloud Drake would be extremely good for their team if you account for the fact that Lilia is the entirety of their damage at this point, with Hui right behind. Having that Ocean Dragon means Lilia can go in with a lot less fear, constantly getting that healing and mana regen just from fighting, and they actually opt to stay on that Seeker's Arm Guard. I like that decision and go for the Riftmaker second.
Wow, Shochi looking for a solo kill here, going to be able to block those skills from Like a Moz and finishes it off. Now a dive into mid. Ariana gets on a Nightstar in the back line with the public execution, and now looking to pop off onto the rest of the team. Gonna get put to sleep by Maddie. Eep comes through, and they blow up the top laner. Shut down gold over to the Deer. But, you know, you said that was a free Dragon earlier, and Dorado turn it into a very expensive one. They take the top inner, make plays bot and mid.
Yeah, I mean, now we're seeing that execution we're talking about. Flash Hook finally does not find its mark, but they're able to recognize, okay, we've kind of screwed up our tempo. We need to try and catch up. They push out lanes, and then they catch Cupid Esports trying to push up a little bit further than they can. Like a Moz goes down, they get 2 turrets off of that, make that 3 turrets as the bottom went down from Shochi. And now Yasuo has that Infinity Edge, has been doing so much damage with no crit, now has 50%, and Horizon Focus picked up by Maokai. Wow. It looks like Kaido is trying to say all of his power are in the saplings. He just wants to get as many saplings out as possible, try and get some gold off of them. As you see, throwing them around, we'll be able to get that Horizon Focus. They did get rid of the damage amp, though.
Yeah, he did. You're going to throw out the Chains of Corruption, going to be roots into roots into roots, and here comes Mixture. Hook connects on to Pika Pika, and they will blow him up with the assistance of Foticon's damage. Another pick for Dorado. They get their members out of there, and it has been pedal to the metal ever since they took that Thornbound Otacon. Dorado Gaming have taken all 3 inner turrets. They have consistently been making picks, and they are not slowing down.
Not at all. Dead Man's Plate ended up being the build for Blitzcrank, not going for that Trailblazer, opting for the more defensive option. And it makes sense when you're playing against a Jhin and a Jace. Jhin, as I mentioned in draft, once you play a couple of tanks into this champion, the game just becomes so much more difficult to play out because of Jin's innate difficulty against high health, high armor champions. See that Storm Surge coming out from Hui second, utilizing the now cheaper item to just be able to blow up targets much more often. And now finishing that Zhonya's is Maddie. We see Muramana completed for Varus. Just a lot of huge breakpoints coming through, and right at the Baron spawn, Corrupting Chains land.
Oh, beautiful Chains of Corruption there, right onto the priority target. Nightstar is blown up. Barrick about to join him, and this is gonna be a wipe for Dorado Gaming. 5-for-0 ace off of Fodacon's Chains, and Dorado will march right into the base, and I think they're gonna close it out right here. It's 30-second death timers.
I think that's game. You see exactly what they drafted for, and you know, this is the reason that I love these champs like Maokai, because he throws out the Nature's Grasp to follow up with those Chains of Corruption, and the whole team is locked down. Nothing they can do, and they just get run down.
Beautiful execution from Dorado. Called it out earlier. I mean, from Otacon take a little bit after 20 minutes into this game end at 25 minutes. Not sure what just happened to the feed here, but we're back, baby. That's game number 1. Huge win for Dorado. And ever since, I mean, from 20 to 25 minutes, they just blow up the whole game. They do not stop making plays for even a minute. And there it is. I mean, look at 20 minutes on the gold chart into 25-10 when the game ends. It just completely changes the pace and slaughters Cupid.
Yeah, this is... and I don't say this to take away the performances of any players, because I dislike when people talk about draft in a way of like, this team won draft and this team lost draft, because you're always going to get something viable, something that works, has a win condition. But you do see some of those advantages that this draft provided. The Maokai went full AP, but still decent survivability, was never really in huge danger. And Bessa blind picked, able to just safely play out the laning phase. Shochi got that Yasuo is quite volatile, but one thing you can't say Shochi didn't do was occupy Lycama's time, kept him in a side lane for so long, meaning that this Hui could not do anything on the rest of the map. And you see all that damage Hui was doing, but it wasn't actually affecting the game. It wasn't getting them back into it. It wasn't shrinking the gold lead. And the meanwhile, we talked about the versatility of the Varus build, was sitting on Edge of Night, Yumu's, and just pumping out so much damage with these arrows. And really just another incredible game mixture, keeping up his streak of game-changing performances.
And if it wasn't already there, add this to the list of bot lanes that you cannot let Fodacon and Mixture get their hands on. It's the Varus Blitzcrank, it's the Kalista Nico, it's the Lucian Nami, it's the Senna Rakan. There's so many duos that these guys play at such a high level, and they are just absolutely slamming lanes on them, game in and game out. It feels so difficult to respond to. Nightstar and Pika Pika, just the latest victims of the weekend to these two bot laners. And I don't know what the answer is going to be, because plenty of those duos are still up and available coming into game number 2.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about this because they played so well this game, but it's not like Shochi or Kato or Ariana aren't capable of carrying a game. So now you go into game 2 of a Fearless. Let's try and, you know, target some of these other options, like you said, the Lucians, the Sennas, the Kalistas. We even saw Kaisa performed extremely well in that last series. But you do that, what do you leave up available? Do you give Ariana Gwen? Do you give Kaito one of his assassin champs, or maybe one of these bruisers that he could very well pilot? Shochi, you know, they could opt to go for a very classic Dorado comp and maybe grab themselves a quirky early rotation, flex it between mid and bot, and kind of build around that uncertainty that Cupid would have. I mean, they have so many options, and, you know, this is their third win of the day. They are still rolling, and that confidence is only going to get greater and greater and greater. The only, nerve there is if they get overconfident, they go into this fourth game of the day knowing that they can afford to lose a game and maybe throw out some picks that they think would be more fun than winning. But I think with a team as, strong as Dorado, as focused as Dorado, I don't know if they'll be making those mistakes.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, they've been looking like they've been scaling as the tournament is going on. They've been playing cleaner, more disciplined League of Legends as the tournament is going on and as the opponents have gotten more difficult. So not looking like they are showing any signs of slowing down now. We'll see if game number 2 going to present something else for Cupid to try to fight their way back in and take Dorado to their first game number 3 of the upper bracket, or if it's going to be a clean sweep coming into the winners finals, both fully on the table here. We're going to take a quick break before we get into draft number 2. We'll see everybody in a few short minutes as Dorado and Cupid take to the Rift for the second time.
And they say I have a grim sense of humor.
Welcome back, everybody, to today's broadcast of the NACL Open Qualifier here on Aegis, where Dorado are up 1-0 over Cupid Esports. Looks like we will still have Dorado on blue, Cupid on red, coming into game number 2. Let's see how Cupid can adapt after a game number 1 that Dorado, from 20 minutes on, just ran away with.
Yeah, and we're seeing those bans stay the same. I actually really like this adjustment of Galio instead of Kindred banned, because Kindred really only works in that one setup in comp, but Galio is so much more versatile. You can really play Galio in most compositions as long as you have another damage source in like the jungle or top lane. So I like that variation here. The Senna first pick, we already saw it once today. Fodicon can pilot this champ very well, but Cupid now, they say they want their own hyperscaling. They want the most hyper champ they can get. And so Jinx, Xin Zhao. Xin Zhao is just, it's such a strong pick because while past like 15 minutes doesn't do a lot of damage, does provide you some good frontline with the Crescent Guard. But Crescent Guard doesn't matter when you've got a bug creeping up behind you and one-shotting you.
Yeah, I mean, Fodicon gets his Senna. We've talked about how dangerous that is. And Kaido on the Kha'Zix, a huge threat. Love it as a combo with the Orianna as well. You can stealth the ball in if you do find yourself some really good scenarios there. That's a cute little combo that we might end up seeing out of Dorado. It also takes away another strong mage pick from Leica Moz, who I think is likely to take the Azir. Wow, that is a different look from Leica Moz as he goes for the Akali, trying to pick an assassin of his own to try to punish the blind Orianna out of Shoshi.
Yep. Last game we saw the public execution. Now we're seeing the perfect execution. Akali, I mean, this was, if I remember correctly, I think it was 2022, where every mid laner was either playing a control mage or Sylas or Akali. And it was like, are you confident enough that you can pick that counter and win lane? And I think this is the game to pull it. Like, you're down 1-0, you can still very easily come back. And Leica Moz played very well last game. Had a bit of a rough start, but was able to come back into the game. And I think having these assassin v assassin comps really equalizes how you're going to play these team fights, because it's not this constant like, oh my god, where's Kha'Zix, what angle are they coming from? You're kind of playing the same game. So while you're looking for your own angles, you're cutting off the opposing team. And as we look at some more support bans coming in this second phase, I also want to point out Orianna received some pretty nice, I would call them quality of life buffs, with that Q mana cost being flat throughout the entirety of that early lane. So going to be excited to see how that pairs with these new mage items.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. It will be an interesting selection. And now going to be support bans on both sides. And the Rakan is still up. Dorado bans the Rakan. So they're going to go for a different duo with the Senna than we have seen from Fodicon and Mixture thus far. We'll see what they end up going for. Here is now going to be looking towards a potential support pick for Cupid. I do think they want to give last pick over to Barrick. And it is going to be the Tom Kench, and an effort to keep their Jinx safe. There is no Blitzcrank as the counter this time. See what Mixture decides to go for in this situation. There's a lot of creative stuff you can go for alongside the Senna. I'm curious if he's going to try to go for something spicy, or if we might see... I mean, a lot of the traditional engage stuff is down. Will be a tough choice.
We could see Ornn, we could see Braum. Not as fun, but very, very good, especially against Akali, against Xin Zhao. I mean, Braum forever and always will be present in competitive play because of just how versatile the kit is and how strong he is into any engage comp in the game. Senna Braum, I remember back when there was a meta that coincided where Senna was strong and having supports build legitimate tank items was strong, and you pair that together and Braum was building like Thorn Mail, Warmog's armor, and it was disgusting. But I think now we're firmly in the Senna farming range, and now we see another very strong blind pick of Gnar coming through and just providing Orianna a way to make sure they are impactful. And with Malphite coming in here, very good into Senna, into Kha'Zix, into Gnar for, I would say, levels like 5 onwards once he gets back by some cloth armors. So a lot of this game is going to be on how they execute these team fights. I mean, for Dorado, they have to be proactive. They have to be the ones starting them. They have to be the ones finding the angles. Because if they just kind of rock up to a Dragon Pit and walk around, all of a sudden Malphite's ulting in, Tahm Kench is following up, and your entire team is getting torn through by Jinx rockets.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not crazy about the Braum pick for that reason, right? Dorado need to have the go buttons. They need to be the ones deciding when to start these fights. And real eyes on a kind of new test for Ariana here, who's going to need to do the rage bar management. That's going to be critical here. If you're able to find, as Barrick, a mini Gnar walking around with the rest of his team and start the fight on those terms, it's a snap go button anytime, because you can blow up anybody on this Dorado roster if you do find a mini Gnar wandering around exposed and going to be pretty weak in the frontline department in those kinds of states. So Dorado need to manage their Gnar bar. They need to find Mega Gnar fight angles, and they kind of need to be flank angles, because you're not going to have access to those traditional engaged tools. Now, yes, Cupid is almost certainly going to have to come into you. You're going to be the better poking team, especially as we've seen from Kaido. He does like to evolve the Void Spike second, so he is going to bring in that extra kind of ranged AD poke, in addition to Fatakan being on its longer range champion as the scaling goes up and Shochi having the ball. So Dorado can also make do by just controlling space and getting to objectives first, but they don't do that. They certainly need to find the flanks, or Cupid is just going to be able to pull the trigger at a moment's notice.
Yeah, and the Braum pick becomes even more interesting when you recognize that while the support pool had been pinched, no Rakan, no Rel, you have no Nautilus from the previous game, but Leona was up and available. Leona was actually the champion I thought they would pick instead of Tahm Kench, because then you leave them with only stuff like those flexes like Poppy, and I guess still Braum would have been available. But one of the more niche things that Cupid has in their favor, and this is something where, you know, these are the moments I love casting, because you can kind of set these up in advance and see if they do make this right decision. Malphite can very easily build Frozen Heart, and Senna does not play well against Frozen Heart. I know you can say that for most AD carries, but when you slow down the attack speed of Senna, it not only affects how often the champ can hit, but it affects how long the windup is, because that scales based off attack speed. So having very easy access to Frozen Heart, an item that is otherwise not the easiest to build into for most champs, will make Fatakan's life even more difficult. And without any real peel, they're going to have a hard time stopping Malphite from using that ultimate, let alone getting just in unit range to apply that attack speed slow.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I like this pick for Barrick a lot. I think it opens up for Cupid to be able to find really solid fights and give those resets over to Nightstar, which is going to be the name of the game. I'd need to be seeing a strong lane phase out of Cupid Esports, though, whether that be through Maddie making his way down bot, using the early power of this Xin Zhao and indexing into making sure that Nightstar and Pika Pika have a solid laning phase, trusting that, you know, Lycamos is going to go down XCS, but should be able to lane against Oriana without getting solo killed, and that Barrick similarly should be able to do the same up against the Gnar and let these guys, you know, sacrifice their lanes a little bit to come out and be more powerful in the mid game. I think that's got to be the move here, because we've seen the 2-on-2 between these two squads. Fatakan and Mixture can be so dangerous in the 2-on-2, and if they build up another substantial lead against Nightstar and Pika Pika in that 2-on-2, it just doesn't let your Jinx comp get going.
Yeah, especially considering that if they even just play even, Cupid has a much more straightforward team fighting phase of the game, whereas Dorado, you know, Gnar does not really want to be front to back. He wants to try and find an angle for that Gnar ultimate. Kha'Zix is obviously going to be trying to find isolated targets, stay in fog of war, and Oriana wants to just find her own angle for a shockwave. Fatakan and Braum are probably going to be on their own, just trying to keep themselves alive. And then you look on the flip side, it's going to be Malphite, Xin Zhao, Tahm Kench running forward in front of Jinx, making sure Jinx is in range but isn't getting killed. And the whole time, Akali is just trying to mark Kha'Zix or try and get a flank angle to get as much damage down as possible, sit and wait in that shroud, and then utilize that perfect execution to isolate and kill most likely Senna, who will have very little way to stop that Akali from doing so.
Yeah, I mean, Lycamaz has so many great targets here for that perfect execution. Again, I'm including Mini Gnar in this. Ariana likely, going to be going that Trinity Force build. That's usually how you see these Gnars build these days. And you need Mega Gnar then to have that innate tankiness. Mini Gnar might as well just be another carry for you to be able to blow up. So Lycamaz has a huge selection of very, very good dive targets for himself here. If he's able to pair on up with the Barrack and Pika Pika engages, that Abyssal Dive and Unstoppable Force are going to be great engage tools. Maddie's going to be able to dive on in there too. So this can be a really strong dive comp. Pika Pika may very well be just hanging back to make sure he can gobble up Nightstar as necessary, evade the Kha'Zix, evade the Shockwave, whatever ends up needing to be. That's going to be really good opportunities for Lycamaz to be able to go in with the rest of this team and blow somebody up. Like we called out earlier, I think Dorado really wants to be the ones pulling the trigger here, because if Cupid gets to go first, they are going to be able to take their choice of carry off of the table with Lycamaz and Maddie and the amount of damage they bring, and they're going to be able to start resetting out of their Jinx.
Yeah, and playing the mid game is so difficult against a professional level team, because once Malphite breaks out of lane, you have to be careful of how you walk always. You have to be escorting every single champion without mobility, and that means that Orianna and Senna are going to need constant attention, and generally your jungler would be sharing the responsibility of escorting your champions wave to wave. But I don't know how much help Kha'Zix is when trying to prevent the enemy team from all-inning your mage or your AD carry. He's just kind of going to get killed himself as well. So going to be a lot on the shoulders of Mixture, and if the last 3 games we've seen from him are any indicator, once again, I have confidence in him to be able to pull this off. As the Braum champ will be very strong. You're going to be able to tag Tahm Kench, Akali, Xin Zhao, Malphite. All 4 of those champs are going to be stunned for a portion of these team fights. But other than that, it's going to be very tricky, and these are not team fights. These are not setups that are easy to replicate. You have to be very proactive. You have to be getting down early vision, clearing vision, making sure that you're in the right spot if you're going to teleport in from another wave. And while we're mentioning all of this, one of the things that I find most interesting about this draft outcome is the mid lane matchup is almost completely inverted, as you mentioned, where last game it was the Yasuo consistently all-inning onto the Hui, and now Lycamaz gets his shot at revenge to just make Shochi's life a living hell.
Yeah, definitely does here. We'll see if Lycamaz is going to be able to execute. Well, we've got a couple more minutes of spec delay here. Do want to check out around the rest of the bracket, by the way. As was called out, some of the other matches to qualify you to a quote-unquote finals matchup, a matchup that will qualify you to the promo tournament. Galaxy Gaming facing off against Jolly Rogers. Jolly Rogers currently 1-0 up in that matchup. Winner of that will play against Dorado or Cupid. And then over on the other side of the bracket, DIT Esports did take down Pepe Lala, and UCI took down Zero Animosity. So those 2 teams going to face off today for a spot in a qualification match. Citadel took a 2-0 over Mint Gaming, and Milk Esports finding a 2-1 over the Guild will put them in a qualification matchup up against Citadel, or a pre-qualification matchup, a matchup to get to a qualification matchup for Milk. So that's the Sunlight, Evanlai, Elias, Enthralled, Claritz roster. Very excited to see how they will be able to do.
Yeah, and we were speaking about this during one of the breaks when looking at the NACL teams that will be met in that promotional event. I believe is the official term, promotional event. Apex, Mission Impossible, and Polestar are both very beatable teams. And they are going to have the edge, not only because they, were in the NACL, but, that is a higher level of practice that they've been getting for the past couple of months. But both of those teams either have rosters that were in an OQ or had a shaky entry into the NACL. So if you get through this tournament, you have good odds into becoming an NACL team.
Yeah, I mean, definitely some soft competition, one might say, in the form of Polestar. Not one of the strongest rosters that the NACL has put forth in recent years. So certainly strong candidates for one of these teams to be able to relegate. We'll see how they are going to be able to perform, if they are able to get there, and who will be the faces. Citadel, obviously, among the favorites there with all of their ex-NACL talent. A lot of talent that folks feel should be in the NACL at this stage. Well, Dorado Gaming, though, certainly looking to make their way in there as well. The only former NACL player on this team, well, City Witty was for a bit under that name. Kaido going to be looking to return, but Shochi, a longtime NACL player in his own right.
And we can't forget Fatakan in Tier 2 across the ocean in Turkey, playing with a very, very impressive team. Not only those two Korean imports of Tempt and Asper, but also some very, very household names in the Turkish league of Starscream and Ferret. If you've watched international play-in tournaments, you will definitely know those names. Been a part of many Turkish rosters to make it to MSI and Worlds. Once again, so much early fighting from these bot lanes, and that's one of the other benefits of Braum. He provides so much early damage once those stacks come through, and Pika Pika had enough of that poke. He's out of here.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, hopefully we'll be able to get in sooner than we did in the last round of pauses. It is, of course, a different player this time, supposedly, so hopefully Pika Pika will be able to get that figured out here in short order. We'll be able to get back into the laning phase. Didn't get shown too much in this early clear here. It is worth noting both junglers started bottom side, but Maddie's going right from Wolves to top side, so he may be looking to accelerate himself a little bit here, as it does look like we are right back into the action.
And he's not only is he going Wolves to top side, they spotted the ward on his Raptors, and based on the minimap, I don't know if it sees the full Raptor camp, so he might be able to pull it out, but he's not going to risk it. He's going to go straight to red buff to Gromp so that he can get level 3 and be top side as soon as possible. So extremely good pathing from Maddie. I mean, this is, I don't want to glaze too far, but this is some Canyon level, like, I am going to just outsmart you with my early pathing, try and find an angle to create an advantage, and then play off that through the rest of the game. But, I mean, constant fighting, level 2 hit.
Oh, level 2 first for the Cupid bot lane. They're going to try to go all in on a Fatakan here. He is exhausted. Stuns come through thanks to Mixture, but it is too little and too late. Nightstar looking to pick up first blood, and a flash out from Pika Pika to try to stay alive. Mixture going to flash over to be able to finish that one off, but now an excited Nightstar going to look to try to finish off this one-on-one. Did auto a minion there. Was a little bit of an error. Will it end up making a difference, though? Doesn't look like it, thanks to the zap. Nightstar still attack moving on to minions. He did that twice in that fight, and I think that cost him.
He's got there's a in interface, there's a checkbox you gotta hit that makes you, if you don't specifically attack click onto a champion, it makes you attack the closest thing. He's got to click that button as soon as possible. But Maddie didn't opt to go top. He was seen on that ward. Now we're getting a 1v1.
Yeah, the jungler's facing off here over the wall. Lycamaw's trying to make a big play. Doesn't actually connect the shuriken flip, but his team gets the kill anyway.
That was pure distraction. It stunned me. It stunned me as a viewer, so I'm sure it stunned Kato as a player. Just no idea what a call. He's just trying to flex, do some backflipping. Vodacon now just trying to grab some stacks. They might actually be able to kill right now.
I think they're going to kill Pika Pika here. Yeah, I mean, just too far up. Nightstar's getting in there. Nightstar thinks he can get excited. I don't think this is going to work out for him. It's a double kill back to Dorado.
This is... I thought that the content contract was only with Dorado. Apparently it's with Cupid as well, because they are just flipping everything. They are done with this, you know, farming bottom lanes and just trying to wait for your opportunity, wait for your opponent to make a mistake. No, we're running into melee range and we're right-clicking our opponent or minions until one of us dies. And they're keeping it up around the other map, or around the rest of the map, rather, that we haven't been able to focus on much. I do want to point out, Shochi this game is opting to pick up that unsealed spellbook has the teleport as that base summoner spell, and I believe, if I recall correctly, when Summoner Spellbook was meta for mid laners and top laners, they would normally take teleport as their main secondary, because you can swap off teleport when it's on cooldown, and then when it comes back, you go back to teleport, correct?
Yes.
So is going to be able to leverage that strength, spend some XP poking with Akali, teleport back to lane, switch summoner spells to something that could help you in the 2v or the 1v1, so on and so forth. So rest of the map playing out a bit as expected. Malphite going for that Comet to make that early game poke even more annoying.
Yeah, I mean, a heartbreaker there for the Cupid bot lane. I'm still flabbergasted. They had the 2-on-2 lead against Fodicon and Mixture, and just kind of send it back there a little bit. Not game-ending by any means, but was a massive window into the game that is now gone as Fodicon is back to farming them for souls. Getting a lot of damage on through here. One more auto will get the stun onto Pika Pika and enable a nice, easy escape. And a good early phase for Dorado when all is said and done. Double knockup, though. Really well placed Abyssal Dive. And here comes Maddie to try to set up onto Fodicon. Once again, the knockup does connect. They need those last couple of autos, and they will be able to get it. Nightstar will eventually be taken down, but it's a double kill for Maddie. And now Kaido in deep enough that they will just melt him down. Maddie, 4-0 to start things off for Cupid.
The bug got put in the bounce house, gets knocked up by the Xin Zhao. Talon Strike knocked up by Tom Kench, and it looked like a decent start, and Fodicon might have tried to hand check them a little bit too much towards the end. He flashed towards the Cupid bottom lane to dodge that Wind Becomes Lightning, and it ended up being the death of him as Barrett getting thrown backwards. He's got to ult to get out or he's dead.
I think he is dead even if he does ult out, but he believes otherwise. Nice dodge on the boulder toss, and Barrick, putting his faith in his own mechanics, will get away from there. Shoshi is coming to collapse on him, though. Shoshi can flash for this. He does. Barrick walks away from the ball. He gets one more auto off. Barrick survives it all. They send everything at him. They expend Shoshi's flash, and Barrick stays alive.
The clock was not wound up nearly enough. Lycamon does have the Shuriken Flip available in Nightstar. What's new? Getting killed bot lane.
Oh, and now Lycamaw's found in mid. Will be able to get his way out. Nightstar survives the sliver, but through the tower, Fodicon finds him with piercing darkness.
I was wondering how that kill was going to come through, because Braum flashed forward to try and hit the Winter's Bite, but Fodicon Q's through the tower. Is able to pick up that long-range kill, and I mean, you're seeing the confidence Fodicon plays with this champion. We saw it not only in the earlier game, but this one as well. The whole theory around Senna is this champ is supposed to be weak early and then scale up with the stacks, but when you put this champ in the hands of a player like Fodicon, I mean, he's been playing long enough to where Senna's been meta for some of these years he's been playing, especially back in 2022 when he was on this stacked lineup I keep talking about. This is a year where Senna was quite available once you got past those hyper carry attack speed champs. So showing off what can be done with a serrated Dirk and Boots of Swiftness, and nothing else as Gnar is hit.
Into the wall goes Barrick. Good amount of damage off of Ariana. Now the 2v2 in the bottom lane continuing to be constant. So that is a lethal tempo proc from Nightstar as he continues that charge going away. Kaido is in the area. He's stealthing in with the ultimate. It's a 3 versus 2. Double knockup from Pika Pika, but you can't stop Kaido on the Kazakhs. He gets a double kill before Maddie arrives, who's now locked down, trying to turn it back on Fodicon. Fodicon flashes it back away. Now he's in melee range with Kaido, and it's a triple kill right back. Dorado's jungler on the board.
I thought for a moment there Maddie might be able to do a little bit of cleanup, but not having the level 6 yet means that he can't avoid any of the damage coming through from those 3. And I mean, once Kaido walks in, it's so difficult for that 2v2 to play out, because you know, Jinx is trying to run away, run for her life, but as soon as she gets far enough away from Tom Kench, she becomes isolated, and Kaido just annihilates her with the Q from Kazakhs. And Lycamaz now, mid lane, doesn't know Braum's behind him. Shockwave hits.
Yeah, really nice positioning on the ball there from Shochi. I think that's going to guarantee this kill on a Lycamaz. Nice, perfect execution away. Maddie on his way, and they do see him on that ward, so they decided to give up on the play. Lycamaz is able to create the space and get away. Doesn't have to expend the flash either. Absorbs a couple of ultimates for his own. Maybe going to be at a little bit of risk trying to stay in the lane. We'll see how long he feels he can hang out.
I'm happy they didn't go for that dive top. That would have been super sketchy. The full health armor vest ninja tabby Malphite is not a champ you want to be diving, but they opt to just jump over the wall. They're going to trade Void Grubs for the first dragon. I think that's a smart trade to be made at this point. You don't have a lot of bot prio because of that last play. Fotacon and Mixture both backed, so you know you don't have the numbers. Just give up the dragon, take the Void Grubs, and with the range advantage on the side of Dorado Gaming, I think those grubs are going to be very, very good in the side lane, especially when you've got Gnar. Will just consistently be pushing down, especially if you get an early blast come. As Fotacon caught out here 1v2.
Yeah, a little walled off here. This knockup will be dodged away from, but forces him to path him the other direction. Big block from Mixture to stop the Super Mega Death Rocket. It may cost Mixture his life, though. They need to donate this one to Nightstar, and they do. We'll now get some alone time with the bot lane turret to get some plates as well. It's a good play for Nightstar. Cupid getting their Jinx right back into the game.
Very good. Need to start getting some gold into Jinx and start accelerating, because I mentioned earlier, if you just go even, Jinx certainly will be very strong, but if you start falling behind, you know, you look at the rest of this team, it's very reliant on Jinx's DPS because Akali's damage is not very reliable. And the only real upside you could see from Dorado Gaming on that last play is now Braum and Senna have identical score lines. Is, you know, this bottom lane, we're going to be seeing a lot of them in OQs, and as we've seen here on Aegis, you've already seen a lot of Fotacon and Mixture, so hopefully for the long run, this is the start of something beautiful down here with these two, and the rest of this supporting staff as well. Shochi doing extremely well into this counter matchup. With that being said, this is around the time that Akali starts to be able to win, starts to be able to do enough damage and dodge enough of Orianna's spells. Kaido obviously piloting his pocket pick so extremely well, and Orianna on the weak side up here hasn't really fell victim to Malphite's armor stacking, really just being able to farm up, prevent enough farm from the side of Malphite and take advantage of trades when he can.
I mean, it's a huge lead. I don't know how Orianna has gotten up 25 CS here, but he's certainly not complaining. It's not like Maddie's been up here to support Barrack by any means, but yeah, I mean, this has been a pretty pure one-on-one. Nobody else really showing up for the most part, and Orianna has just come up with a sizable advantage, constantly getting this chip damage through onto the Malphite. Going to be contributing to that almost 2K gold lead that Dorado have built up for themselves now. It's really all on Nightstar's hands, and you know, no matter how far behind the Malphite gets, will still be that big engage tool for the team. Lycamaz is getting enough gold to be able to do damage, as is Nightstar. So they're going to need to execute on these team fights. They're going to need to have everything go according to plan. Like we talked about ad nauseum in draft, it's going to have to be them getting to pull the trigger before Dorado can, and finding their way onto those critical backliners.
Yeah, and continued trading. Knight's Vow is going to be the first item for Tom Kench. I like that decision. Just fully indexing into my job is to protect Jinx. And walking forward here, another Winter's Bite hits. Could potentially stun up Senna, walking up a bit too far, going to definitely see a 2v2 here.
That interrupted Abyssal Dive too. This is a nightmare scenario for this 2-on-2. Gonna have to devour up Nightstar to get him out of there, and they do get the concussive blows expiring. So at the end of the day, it is a forced recall, and it is more wraiths for Fotacon. Continues to stack up those stacks. Fotacon got to be at a pretty sizable number at this point. If we could take a stack check here before too long, would be nice.
Before they revolt, before they start climbing through the walls for this soul check, I'm gonna assume it's around 50 at this point. 14 minutes in, as Lycamaz has the perfect execution, might have been able to chase that, but recognizing Braum may be in the vicinity. Same with Kaido, doesn't want to risk it too much. And as we have a moment here, where we're checking this, I do want to share my little fun fact I always think of when two champs from this year are being played. The year I started playing, 2014, the most broken year for competitive League of Legends champions. The releases of Gnar, Braum, Azir, and Kalista all occurred in 2014. And champions that are still at the forefront of nearly every meta every single year. So it's just interesting over a decade later to see them all still available, and now 3-men bot trying to shift this matchup.
Yeah, going to be a numbers advantage for Cupid, but Fatakan already getting his way out of there with the Ghost. I think he's going to be able to just nullify this play, and Kaido going to take advantage of the opportunity. He's just waiting for the spawn on the Rift Herald, and I think he's going to be able to just take it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with having no real lockdown in this bottom lane. And when you pick the Tahm Kench, sure, you get more defensive ability for Jinx, but you also lose a ton of agency and engage power that something like the Leona would have given you, or even the Rel would have given you, which was an option for them. And now you're kind of just sitting 3-man bot losing the 2v3.
Yeah, double knockup coming on through. Really nice placement on the last embrace. Fatakan going to kind of just try to contribute some CC. Instead moves on to Nightstar, but Nightstar gets the reset. Now here's a shockwave to try to create some space. Maddie dives back away to dodge it, and under the tower goes Lycamaz to finish off Fatakan. Now Shochi going to be isolated with him. Lycamaz going to be able to get back over the wall. Shochi flashes over to try to pick up the kill. A flash devour from Pika, and now Nightstar gets his moment to try to finish off the mid laner. Kaido picks up something in mid lane, but other than that, it is a complete win for Cupid. They get themselves right back into this one.
What an incredible devour from Pika. I mean, this whole time we're talking about these support matchups, and it felt like last game Pika really wasn't able to showcase much of anything. But now, I mean, that whole play created and kept by Pika, as everyone, chat, listen up. You're getting what you asked for. I have in my ear, I have received a soul check, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else. It is 68 souls. So on track for 120, a little bit behind if we are, you know, going on the normal mathematic path as we are trying to find positioning for this Ocean Dragon. Only second dragon of the game. Feels like they've been not able to really get any positioning on it because of the constant death in the bottom lane.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, 3 upgrades in for Fatakan's range. Pretty substantial, well on his way to the 4th. And Dragon started up by Cupid. It does look like they are going to just be given this one. Rift Herald was already secured earlier on by Kaido, so it's going to be okay with giving that one up. Did get all the way onto the mid-inner turret with it. So 2k gold lead to Dorado. Going to largely be off of those objectives taken. And wow, I mean, Ariana's just building up such a lead over this Malphite. Up about 30-some CS now.
Yeah, I've been extremely impressed when I came into today with the games we watched yesterday, the prep I was able to do from their public accounts and their Lopedias. Ariana seemed like a typical carry player, but showing so much versatility, flashing out of the way of that unstoppable force so perfectly. We've seen the carries, we've seen the tanks, now we're seeing the engage playing so well.
Yeah, and now Barrack up too far with no ultimate, going to have to brawl with Ariana yet again. Losing a fair bit of HP. Maddie going to be here for the defense. Ariana going to have to throw down the control ward just to see who's approaching him. He'll have to back on away. Minus 100 gold, though. That's rough. Still feels good after having been able to dodge out on what I think was the first aggressive Malphite ult out of Barrack this game. We're going to put that at 0 for 1. Going to be a little while until he's going to be able to try for that one again, but nothing huge coming up on the map in that time. Otacon will be up in about 90 seconds, but I don't know if this is a game where either team are going to really full send towards that one unless they get a great opportunity.
Yeah, and one of the things you're seeing on the side of Cupid is the one unfortunate downside of one of the highest prio junglers, Xin Zhao. 6-1-2 on the scoreline, going for the most optimal build, but you notice not a ton of damage that comes out of this champion. You always feel like you're going to do more than you actually do on Xin Zhao, but what this champion does provide is consistent frontline damage, decent CC, and that Crescent Guard allows you to survive so much longer than other bruisers would normally survive while frontlining. Also has a good early game, so I'm happy to see the Black Cleaver being built because that will also help buff up this Jinx, which is ultimately your win condition, which is now getting killed in the mid lane.
On the Nightstar, and it is Kaido on the Kha'Zix finding his mark and getting a 5th death on a Nightstar. Now Kaido coming in on the flank. How many more can Dorado clean up? Easily going to be able to take Pika Pika. It's a 5v3 on the map now for the next couple of seconds. This might be that Otacon angle we talked about earlier.
Certainly going to be able to pick that up now. And when you think about the type of map control Dorado has had all game, they're probably sitting on quite a few flowers. So that buff from the Otacon going to be even bigger when you consider how much extra XP they are going to get. Doesn't look like they have too many advantages XP-wise, except for in the jungle. 2 levels Kaido is up on Maddie, and that's pretty crazy when you consider the score line. But when you look at the CS difference, I mean, having similar score lines, similar kill participation, but being up 50 CS is pretty unbelievable. As Otacon, they won't be able to take it. And doesn't look like their health bars were too low. I wonder, maybe they're concerned about spending a lot of health, having a big fight at the Otacon now with the dragon coming up so soon. They're worried about falling into Soul Point after using a lot of ultimates to defend Otacon. That's my guess. Obviously, we don't know for sure, but I think this is a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, Otacon just takes so long to do, and the respawn timers are so short this early in the game. Nightstar and Pika Pika not at very low health bars, and now Maddie pulled into the depths. There's the Dawning Shadow. Big knockups come through from Barrack, and Nightstar finds his first reset. Eyes on Kaido on if he'll be able to find his way onto this Jinx. It's Ariana on the back line, throwing Nightstar back into the team. Devour going to keep him alive for a little bit longer, but Otacon will find the kill. The Glacial Fissure gonna find Nightstar once again, but he does so manage to stay alive. Another snipe from another piercing darkness from Otacon will win the fight for Dorado Gaming. Ariana on a massive TP flank takes the fight for Dorado.
They just don't have any damage past Jinx. Akali went in and found a great shroud position, but as soon as the perfect execution was missed on Kaido, that champion's just over. They're done. There's nothing more the Akali can provide unless you give it the uptime to get another spell rotation going through. And once you get out of the mist, this champ is so easy to lock down. And then, I mean, everyone was focusing Jinx. Braum hitting that max range ult to get the knock up. Otacon able to get the kill through all of those opposing members. And again, like I showcased, Maddie has all of these kills, all of this gold, and just wasn't doing anything. But now going to find Otacon.
Yeah, they should surely be able to clean this up. Lycamaz has got to start hitting these shuriken flips at some point, but he will get the kill regardless. Does have perfect execution, can try to fight his way out of this. Will they just get in there onto Shochi? Maddie is going to melt on down through the Crescent Guard, but Lycamaz will be able to use the ultimate to try to dive away. Here comes Pika Pika for the backup. They will be able to retreat successfully. It's a 1-for-1 trade. Maddie for Otacon. I think he'll take that if you're Cupid.
Absolutely, and going to look to still try and secure the vision here as the dragon has not been taken. Mountain Soul, so bit of a different soul this time, which is nice. Going through all of those original elemental dragons, but it looks like Cupid once again finds themselves with control of the dragon pit. And before we go into this fight, everyone watching at home, I am receiving another check. We have hit 100 souls, 23 minutes, not a bad timer. And now with control over dragon, gonna see another fight, but I think they're gonna be able to secure dragon before it even starts.
Otacon is already used. We'll be able to... Oh, there's the flash away from Barrack. They are going to be able to get in here with Ariana, finding themselves onto the Mega Gnar. They are going to be able to melt their way through the Malphite. There goes Pika Pika, and it's a complete wipe for Dorado yet again, demolishing the fight up against Cupid. And it will be a 4-for-0 so far. Can Lycamaz get away from Kaido? Not looking like it with the isolated slows from those upgraded Void Spikes. Ace to Dorado Gaming.
Clean execution of the fight. As soon as they find the angle, they commit everything, and just so much damage coming out of the Senna. I didn't even see the shockwave come out because of how quickly they just melted that front line. And while Tahm Kench was able to devour Jinx, keep Nightstar alive for just a little bit longer, Mixture just ran right up into Jinx's face, threw the door down, and punched her to death. I mean, there's nothing that Nightstar can do in these fights when you have so much frontline that she has to get through. Now going for that Lord Dominik's, and that's going to feel very bad for Jinx not getting that Runan's Hurricane right away. That's so much damage that they are actually going to lose out on because they're not going for it, going for that Lord Dominik's Regard instead. When you think about, obviously the AoE coming out of the rockets will still be there, but one of the biggest strengths of Jinx is when you're playing against a lot of frontline, having that Runan's Hurricane, you can get those extra AoE rockets, really shred through every single member of a team fight. That's why they go so quickly. Now we're seeing the vision line being expanded even further. They want to make sure that they don't have any repeats of the last series. They don't want Maddie getting any 1 HP Baron steals. But first, they're going to grab this top turret.
Yeah, easy cleanup for them there. Pika Pika maybe up a little bit too far, losing so much health to Fadakan and Kaido. Shockwave back in, connects only on a Maddie. Pika Pika has been able to flash away with his life, but that means no Devour for Nightstar in this upcoming siege, and the poke damage is starting to connect. Good damage off of those Void Spikes, off of those Winter's Bites. They will back on away, content in what they have received. Pika Pika going to be able to rejoin on this next one, but the Baron is on the map. It's the name of the game for Dorado. Cupid going to have to find a miracle fight around that objective.
Yeah, and with Senna having rapid fire, having the stacks at 100 gives her enough range to hit over the wall, but they don't know that they're all waiting.
Yeah, Pika Pika found yet again. Not going to be able to get the great health off in time. Barak has to use Unstoppable Force defensively, and that is any hope of the Baron stop gone from Dorado, or from Cupid, rather. And Dorado might not even worry about the Baron with the numbers advantage. It's continuing to find this harassment. They've got a big wave crashing in on the top. Here's Kaido over the wall, aggressively moving on to Nightstar. He's got Mixture there for the backup. Nightstar has to flash back away, knowing there's no Tahm Kench for the defense, and Fadakan is just tearing fools apart. Dorado get onto the priority target. They take down 3, and Lycomaz and Barrett can only watch. Pika Pika not going to make it any easier. They have to full send it here. Knockup doesn't connect. Lycomaz already used the perfect execution. Ariana bounces across the rest of the team, and each one falls in turn. Dorado Gaming, on a full 8-0 sweep, are going to move themselves into a qualification match for the NACL promotion tournament.
This organization of Dorado, as they wait for Maddie to come back up, they want their KDA to look even better, killing them in the fountain. If you are a fan of Tier 3, you know Dorado Esports as an org. They have so many teams in so many tournaments. Please don't do this to me again. They are finally going to have their chance to get into the NACL. And with a roster that is, as proven by today, extremely capable and extremely competitive. The games where they're playing against, you know, I hate to say it, but like lower tier opponents, they smash them. That they don't even make it look close. But in these games where it is a little bit more competitive, they still look convincing. Even when they falter or fall behind, they come back so swiftly. I mean, this is how you want an NACL caliber team to play out these games.
Yeah, so they will be moving on and going to be just a dominant showing across the board here. If we check in on the bracket, Jolly Rogers up 1-0 over Gravity Gaming. The winner of that will play against Dorado, and if Dorado wins that one, they will be one of the 4 teams competing against Apex Mission Impossible and Polestar for a spot in the NACL. And looking absolutely dominant on their run so far here, right? I mean, some real solid opponents today in Gravity and Cupid, and handedly by Dorado Gaming. looking so good with this newly rebuilt roster.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we've been memeing, chat's been memeing, but Aegis certainly got a good team to follow, as I feel like we've seen a lot of different play style. Like I wouldn't call it evolving because we haven't seen what they've been scrimming, what they've been playing in other tournaments, but they've shown so many different play styles. They can play the two marksmen, they can play scaling, they can play early aggression, they play weak side top, strong side top. They can play where they put their mid lane on an island after like 10-15 minutes and win through that. They can play with supports with agency, they can play with supports who are completely enchanter. I mean, they do it all, and I think this series I might give Fodicon the MVP over Mixture, but last one certainly. This bot lane, let's just give today, this bot lane got themselves the MVP.
Yeah, I mean, what a really, really strong showing out of the spot lane. I mean, these guys just came together as a duo very recently, joining up on Legacy Esports in the ACL. And this was a team where Fodicon was playing support for a lot of the early stages of the season. They came together to have Fodicon and Mixture start playing bot lane together just a couple of weeks ago. Didn't even find success at the ACL at first. Obviously, it's with 3 different teammates, so it's not an exact one-to-one comparison, but over the course of these couple of weeks, it looks like these guys are just unstoppable. Their 2v2 laning has been incredible over this entire tournament, and they are showing no signs of slowing down. These Senna duos are so good for them. The more aggressive duos have looked great. And we got to see those Kaisa games earlier. We got to see so much from both Fodicon and Mixture here today, and they are looking like the strongest duo in the whole tournament.
Absolutely, and that's, you know, obviously the focus has been on that bottom lane, not only because of their performance, but because of just, you know, the import of Fodicon, how well he's played in previous regions, Mixture being one of the up-and-coming support prospects, which I feel like NA has always done a pretty good job of, you know, having good support, NA supports. But, you know, Chochi in the last series played incredibly well. Kato is playing not only his pocket picks, he's playing meta 80 bruisers, he's playing Maokai full AP and still making it work and staying alive. And then, as I already said, Ariana, the Polish star, coming in and playing every type of top laner you possibly can, doing well up against, you know, very veteran top lane players like Alorum and like Barrack. So just really, really well done. And I love to see, like, games we saw today really are why casting this is so great, because we see players who've been playing for so long, players from other regions coming here, you know, the storylines we don't even talk about, that these imports coming here for school so they can get an education here, then playing in these collegiate leagues, playing here in NACL, potentially getting the opportunity to play professionally in this region. So just a great day of games.
Absolutely. And we are getting word that other series is now complete. Jolly Rogers coming up with a 2-0 win over Galaxy Gaming. So a little bit of an upset there, at least by seeding. Galaxy were the seed #1 for the whole tournament. Perhaps not the tournament favorites by the community, but seed #1 nonetheless. They drop 0-2. So Jolly Rogers versus Dorado will be a best of 5 for qualification to the promotion tournament. That will be played on Sunday next week, I believe. No, it'll be played on Saturday. It'll be played on Saturday. So that'll be played on Saturday next week at 5 p.m. Central, so 6 Eastern. That's interesting. No, it's at 3. It's at 4 Eastern. It's at the same time. I'm just bad at doing time zones. So it is same time, 4 Eastern next week. I don't know if it'll be on this stream. Hopefully it will be. Likely will be. So we will, I'll confirm that for you here if I can. We're going to send you guys over to Bill. Okay, we will be streaming it here. So you can come and see it here next week at 4 Eastern. Going to be an exciting match for sure. I don't know who will be on the cast for that one, but they are going to have a huge, joyous series to watch there. Full on best of 5 to make the promotion tournament as high as the stakes in the OQs get. We're going to rate you guys over to Milk taking on Citadel, where Citadel has a 1-0 lead. That is also a match for qualification into, or for getting into a qualification match. So you definitely want to check that one out. But that's going to do it here for the Aegis stream today. Thank you, Jack, for joining us. Thank you for everybody at home for tuning on in. For myself, Jack, and Caddy on production. We will see you guys next week. And remember to tune in tomorrow for ACL playoff qualification matches, where you'll see plenty of these same faces from the OQs try to fight to keep their ACL season alive. Until then, see you next time.